Nothing like a little bit of naval music to get you in the mood. What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Goglings, Gogorifics, and Gog peoples of the world unite. I hope everyone is doing well. It is looking forward to episode 369 of Pen and Pixels. I am your host, Arvin Elleron. This is the show that we do here every Tuesday, focusing on story and narrative in games. And tonight we are continuing, finally, with our Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign. The entire crew is here. We are ready to go. And it is D&D with GOG Ghosts of Saltmarsh as we continue with this awesome campaign and with this awesome crew. And I hope that everyone is looking forward to it. Before I go any further, just a couple of reminders about ways to support us here on the channel. If you haven't done so already, please support GOG.com by subscribing to the channel. Sorry, first of all, by following the channel. Secondly, by subscribing to the channel, we get a cut of that subscription money, and also it helps support not just the streamers, but also allows you to get those custom sub badges and emotes to demonstrate your DRM-free loyalty here, there, and everywhere across Twitch. And please consider clicking through and checking out our individual channels, because we have our own individual Patreons and subsystems and stuff like that as well. Quick note on schedule, we've got this going on right now. I will be on my channel again on Friday with Sorcery, with more Inkle's Sorcery, the Crown of Kings, which is amazing, and you should definitely check that out. And then we'll be into the month of April, and we are figuring out scheduling right now. I should be able to know within the next few days what our schedule is going to look like, both for this channel, which is going to have both Talisman Adventures and some more Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and of course some more Chained Echoes as well, and also on my channel also. And so that's going to be happening very soon, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm excited about, just Dungeons and Dragons in general and all the stuff that we've got going on. So I am pumped up about that. I will also note for the record that I have just had the chance to look at the image of the rough image of the cover of my next novel, which is the sequel to my novel Greyshade. This is my novel Renegade, which is going to be the second book in the series. I've just seen the rough of the cover and I was like, jaw drop. Oh my God. It is freaking phenomenal. So I was just like, well, that's a very nice thing to see in the afternoon while prepping for D&D. So I'm very excited about that. And I just thought I would mention it because, I do talk about story and narrative, and it involves my own books too. So very excited about that. And I'm excited about these other things as we move forward. That said, though, we are here on GOG.com, and I am ready to go with the D&D crew. And so I'm going to unmute myself and apologize unreservedly for whoever I interrupted because I couldn't hear them. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal the amazing crew. And I'm sorry if whoever I interrupted, I'm sorry. I can never hear for sure. But it is good to see everybody here. And yes, Friendly Kitten, the stream. So the YouTube list, the GOG.com YouTube list, I don't control. Pyron can talk about that. But why do we have? Suddenly we have Brian has also become
Pyron J.
Yeah, that's not right. How did that happen? Just a moment
It's
here.
me twice.
It's you twice. No. That's we.
And also, when you unmuted us, I suddenly made a sound like a goose, and I don't know why.
Well, I figure you're just getting yourself in character, for what we're going to hear from our Kenku. There we go. Sorry about that. That's who actually is Brian. Where was I? So yes, the YouTube video stuff, I'll let Pyron talk about that from the GOG side, but just quickly on my side, you can always find it on my Pen and Pixels playlist, on my own YouTube channel, which is under Arvin Eleron. That runs all the way back to when I started a number of years ago here in GOG.com with Star Trek 25th Anniversary. It was my first ever stream on here. So I have all of the D&D stuff, including all of Storm King's Thunder. There's also the audio podcast, which Fleos has been taking care of as well. That is heading up where it's now in the home stretch of the Storm King's Thunder campaign, basically, is what the audio podcast is. But Pyron, who I'm going to introduce right now, can tell you anything she may know about the YouTube channel. It is good to see Pyron. Pyron, how are you? Yeah, please let them know if you know anything about the YouTube channel from GOG's side of things, and also who are you playing tonight?
So, this is the real Pyron. I'm not gonna stand up. And YouTube channel first. I edited some of the of our earlier Saltmarsh episodes, and they were uploaded in on the YouTube channel, but they didn't really get a lot of views, and GOG wasn't really sure whether they would fit in with the whole "this is a channel mostly for trailers" kind of concept, and also I wasn't really good at video editing, and this took like a really, really long time each time, and I kind of panicked every time when I had to do it and make the thumbnail and audio editing and all of this. So this was more or less dropped. Should I ever find a lot of time in my life and maybe a second YouTube channel or something like that, I would love to get that back on track. But until then, give your views to this man.
And there's the link that you can find. That is my playlist. My YouTube is just youtube.com/ArvinEleron. But you can go there for the link, which will show you all of the previous ones. And our most recent of these was probably Talisman Adventures. That was episode 366. 364 was Talisman Adventures. At 359 was Talisman Adventures, and then eventually we got all the way back to Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which was 356. It has been a while since we got ourselves back and rolling with Ghosts of Saltmarsh, but we are here today. Who are you playing today, by the way, Pyron?
I'm playing Waves Crashing Against Rocks, a Kenku Paladin whose name is actually the noise that waves make when they crash against rocks. I'm not sure if the sound works because updating my graphics driver killed my audio settings.
Aha! We did.
Which is a very logical thing to happen, and we just did some diplomacy in a swamp by killing a crocodile, and so we leveled up, and I'm really happy about that.
Level 4. I am very excited for it too.
Level 4.
And by the way, The name of today's adventure is called Diplomacy and Doubt. So we will see.
Oh, I didn't know that, but I love it.
Diplomacy and Doubt. But I'm excited to hear Waves, whether soundboarded or not. It will still be amazing, regardless. It is always a pleasure to have Pyron with us. It is also a pleasure to have, and I'll move down so I can keep our usual order, and that is one Darksaber 2K, who again, thank you for doing, as usual, Moobot and Dashboard and all that good stuff, Saber. I really appreciate that. I hope everything is semi-okay, or at least will be after tonight. And hope everything is okay. How are you, and who are you playing in our session today, sir?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, keeping busy at the moment. But tonight I will be back as a Morthoil Gagonian, a dwarven artillerist.
He fell right into the accent. See, I was just like, I wasn't sure if you were going to remember. It's right there.
I haven't been practicing. No, shut up.
Instantly returns to accent. That's amazing. Yeah, I was actually wondering about that. I was like, I wonder how that. And you're just like, bam, I'm back. That's awesome. I'm excited for Morthwill. I'm also excited to hear what each of these characters is going to gain having reached the heady level of level 4. So we will see. But always a pleasure to have Saber with us. Also a pleasure to have one peripheral Mike, otherwise known as Mike Smith, with us. Good to see you, Mike. I hope all is well with you. How is life in the universe with you, and who are you playing today, sir?
Yeah, it's going well. I've also had some PC issues because of hot dropped graphics drivers. Thanks, NVIDIA. So basically, I upgraded my driver. I accidentally. My
Whoops.
ADHD just took over, and I was just like, "That's a big red button. I'm just going to install." Oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, none of my USB devices work, which is great if you have a PC that you can only interact with via USB devices. Hence, cue me literally 40 minutes ago, sat here Googling on my phone, how do you fix broken USB drivers? Turns out you just smash the power button several times and then it recovers itself. So who knew? What was I even saying? Life in the universe, everything absolutely fantastic. I've been doing tons of YouTube stuff recently. Absolutely tons of YouTube stuff. The February's, which was actually released in March. Sorry, family. Q&A video for my channel went live on my YouTube channel. You get a setup tour, you get a room tour, you get some incredible questions from the community about some of the games I've been playing, some of the series I'm working on, some of the background work that I've been doing. All really cool stuff. I absolutely adore putting those together. But that's live on the channel. Who am I playing today? Not Lump, that's who I'm not playing. I'm playing Silvo Janus Bertulus, our aberrant mind half-elven sorcerer with a slightly sketchy past and a slightly broken magical time bomb in his head. So we'll see how that goes.
Should be just fine. I can't imagine there'd be any problem. And moving right along, of course, always a pleasure to have Mike with us. Moving right along, last but certainly not least, to Ananda, who joins us for the first time in a little while for a variety of reasons, but we have Ananda back now. And Ananda, before I say anything else, I think it's very important that we actually get to the real star, which is not you, but actually who's with you. So do you want to show off? Like,
show us the dog.
Let me see if I can. Can I get her on the cam?
Yes. Hello, dog. What is the name of the dog?
Her name's River.
River. Hello,
You're
River.
adorable, River.
Oh, that's so sweet. There we go.
She's not sure if she wants to stay in the playpen or not. This is only the second day I've had it. So I'm hoping, she's going to go to sleep like a good girl.
She's like, I don't know about this. Like, yes, you do. Yay, doggo.
It's like, screw this. Stop using me for clout.
I'm absolutely using her for clout.
I was going to say, so other than, now that we've gotten the important thing, how are you? And no, of course I'm joking. How's life and everything with you, Ananda? How you doing? How is River doing? And who are you playing today?
I'm doing okay. It's been, I've had to take the last couple of weeks off streaming so that I can just sort some stuff out, including puppy proofing my office so that I can get streaming again. Yay! But yeah, I'm doing okay, thanks. Puppy training is my life right now. She's 17 weeks old, so we're still getting there, but she's very good, and I'm a very proud puppy mum. But yeah, I'm back streaming as of this week, and also with a new rebrand on my channel, which I'm really, really excited about, which will be launching tomorrow. But yeah, really, really excited to be back. Really glad to be back playing D&D. I've missed you guys. I've missed D&D. I've missed Brine, even though she's double exhausted at the moment. Bless her. But yeah, I'm playing Brian the Bloodthirsty. We've just leveled up to level 4. Level 4. She's a Water Genasi fighter pirate. I don't think I've gained any additional juicy attributes for leveling up to level 4. But yeah, I'm really excited to play this evening. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Good stuff. And actually, while we're on the subject of leveling up, I will mention to the party, unless the party has a huge objection to this, I'm going to fast forward us to your return to Saltmarsh and the encounter with the council for two reasons. Number one, because I think we've had plenty of going through swamps, and I think we had a lot of that. Number two, because it gives us a chance to A, clear your levels of exhaustion because of having a long rest as a consequence, and B, tell me what you've gotten at level 4 as we enter this. So I will start. I think I'll work backwards, Ananda, since you mentioned that there wasn't anything juicy. What has Brian reached at level 4? And also, I don't know if you've rolled hit points yet, or chosen hit points yet. So if you haven't, you could do that on stream if you like. But you tell
talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
I leveled up via Roll20, and it does automatically
Okay.
do your hit points. However, I've reverted mine back to my previous hit points so that I could roll them on stream.
Okay, cool. So we'll do that in a minute. Do you want to highlight anything? Did you literally get nothing, you feel like? Or
No, I
what'd you
mean,
get?
unless I missed something in the leveling up process, I don't think I got any additional attributes. I put
Level
an extra
4,
point
you
in
should-
strength and an extra point in con, and other
Oh,
than
okay.
that,
Oh,
that
okay,
was
okay.
it.
Well, that's that is something though. That is the stat boost, because I was gonna say, I'm like, wait, you got something? Yes, your ability score improvement. That's what I was gonna say. So you said you improved 1 strength, 1 con. That seems quite logical to me. Okay, so then yeah, because it may not be sexy, but it's important. It definitely makes a difference.
Yes.
So then let's do this hit point thing. You are, as a fighter, should be 1d10, I believe. So
1d10
plus your con.
plus 4 for being level 4. Is that right?
No, 1d10 plus your con modifier would be what you would be rolling. So you'd roll 1d10 and you'd add whatever your con bonus is.
Okay, but isn't it 4d10 because I'm level 4? Or am I getting that completely wrong?
Well, whatever, because I had you at 34 hit points before, and
Yeah.
then to get the next
So I'm just doing 1d10.
1d10,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
No, it's 4d10 definitely for the
Yeah,
fighter.
yeah, okay.
100%, and for the sorcerer as well.
I've forgotten how to. It's been so long. I've forgotten how to roll in Roll20.
So Mike's like, why does Silvo have to roll 1d2s? Well, you see, I pushed my luck a little too far, and
Is it /R or is it R/?
it's
don't know. I just use the
/roll
buttons.
or /R space 1d20, or yeah, the little sidebar also works.
And then what's my con modifier? 1 second.
I need to remember how on
3.
earth my hit dice is.
Yeah, it sounds right. You have a con of like 16, maybe, or 17?
It's got a con of 17. 8.
17. Okay, 8. And of course, it is not capturing the right dice roller. That's obnoxious. Hang on just 1 second. Okay, there we go. 1d20. 8. That is quite solid. That is actually, that is literally right in the middle of the average. So that's good. That's what you would have gotten anyway if it gave you just the basics. So we're looking at 42, excuse me, out of 42. And what I'm going to say for this, Brian, is that you have 1 level of exhaustion now, not 2. You can probably even clear that if you go to a temple and have a lesser restoration, or something like that. There are ways to address that, but you're dealing with 1 level, not 2 anymore. Because 2 levels was pretty intense. Okay, good stuff. Let me move over to Silvo then, as I work in reverse order. Mike, what has Silvo gained in his process of gaining experience and knowledge as he reaches level 4?
Oh my goodness, what hasn't he gained? He says, quickly looking through his notes, because it's been almost a decade since we played
Yeah,
this.
exactly. He's gained everything. He can
like,
now summon
still
Cthulhu
who?
himself.
Like,
yeah. Right, exactly. He could just
in
summon a
deep
kraken.
contemplation. Right, so for story reasons, all of this will become apparent once Silvo starts shooting his big fat mouth off. But basically, I just get my, weirdly enough, the Discord chat that you and I had a little while ago about this.
Yes.
The beginning of March, that's when this was. He has taken a feat instead of having the attribute bonus boost, and he's taken the feat of Eldritch Adept, Armor of Shadows. Now, this basically means that he can cast Mage Armor on himself at will, whenever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool thing. That's going to be explained story-wise as soon as we have like a break, and Silvo can be like, "You'll never guess what happened."
Yep.
I'm going to guess after the council bit, but we could do it on the boat back. But I'm pretty sure everyone's just going to be like, "Dunk," and just passes out.
Right.
I've swapped around some magic just to keep in line with the fact that Silvo doesn't have 100% control over the spells he knows. He just sort of points his hands in a direction and something happens.
Hopes for the best.
So I've swapped out Mage Armor for Sleep, which I'm hoping is going to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned 2 new spells. I've learned Minor Illusion and I've learned Invisibility.
Both very good.
Yeah, both very good. I also thought that would be quite useful, and also kind of not necessarily attacky, but more utility and more things that could happen, a little bit like in Lord of the Rings, where, Bilbo just disappears suddenly. It's like Silvo finds himself in trouble and then thump, he's no longer there.
Yeah,
but he doesn't know why.
Side note to chat, by the way, for people who ask questions about things to keep in mind, a little bit of a pro tip on the sleep spell. Sleep is, to my mind, one of the most underrated and important early level spells that you can get for multiple reasons. It can affect more than one creature, and when you're dealing with creatures which have somewhat lower hit points at the beginning, sleep is particularly useful. Now, as you move on up the chain and the levels get higher and the monsters get tougher, sleep does not scale well, and it eventually becomes not a spell that you're going to hold on to. But in the early levels, all the way up through, I would say, level 5, maybe level 6, sleep can be extremely useful, both as a crowd control spell and for solving a lot of problems. The classic, do I knock them unconscious or do I kill them? How about you just put them to sleep and then bind them and decide what to do with them later? So
pretty much, yeah.
Very, very useful spell. All right, now I assume you also did not do hit points yet, or have you, Silvo?
I did not do hit points, no. And I was just quickly Googling what my actual hit dice was. So I believe it is 1d6 plus my con modifier.
That sounds right, yep.
Yeah,
for a sorcerer.
Right, doesn't it? What is my con modifier? Plus 2. 1d6 plus 2. Let's do that.
All right, let's see it.
It's 1d6 plus 2. 5.
Outstanding.
Heady heights. I don't even know what my health was.
5. There it is. That once again is right in the middle.
Yeah.
So you were at 19. So this means you are now sitting at 24 out of 24. And you do not have a level of exhaustion. Basically, everyone has lost one level of exhaustion, which is why Brian's at 1 and you were at now 0. So you were at 24 out of 24 hit points as you reach the the high price, I should say. I was looking at low something and then I was realizing low hit point. The high level of level 4. So thank you, Mike. Good stuff for Silvo. All right, that's Silvo and Brian. Let's talk about what Morthwheel has gained. I look forward to hearing from Saber that now Morthwheel can construct a battle tank, just out of nowhere, Hopefully with
you should say that.
Hopefully with the Ukrainian flag painted on the side, I'd be all about that. But no. So yes, tell us what you have gained now as a artificer now that you have reached level 4.
Well, I mean, such things as you mentioned may be in the future, but they are not for me at level 4 yet.
Okay.
I've gone for stat score increases for Morthwheel. He has become a little bit more dexterous and a little bit more intelligent, mostly from having to run around after people charging blindly at enemies.
I don't know what you're talking about. That has never happened.
So he's now got a dexterity of 14 and an intelligence of 18.
Good stuff.
With corresponding increases to his modifiers, and he will now roll for his HP. So he gets 1d8 plus his con bonus of 2, and he's also got Dwarven Toughness, which means he gets an additional +1 on level ups.
Love it.
So that's 1d8 plus 3 for 8.
A little bit above average for a change. Everything, they're just okay. So that means that Morthwheel is at 34 out of 34 hit points. Good stuff, Morthwheel. And yes, I think that's a very good call. Having an artificer with an intelligence level of 18 is definitely what you want. I think so. That's good stuff.
A lot of my stuff goes off my int modifier, so
Yep.
And I decided to just go for Dex because that lets me just get the most out of my armor that I can wear.
Yep.
Without having debuffs.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So good stuff there. That's going to bring us to that and that and that. Okay, good stuff. So 34 to 34. Morthwheel level 4. I love it. Did not have exhaustion, so we don't have to worry about that. Last but certainly not least, waves crashing against rocks. What has our Kenku Paladin gained since reaching the heady heights of level 4?
I was tempted to take a feat, but as waves crashing against rocks is already kind of a stat monster, I thought I should completely lean into that.
Okay.
And walking through the swamp, which was quite exhausting, actually gave her a point in Constitution. And doing diplomacy gave her a point in Charisma.
Ah, very nice. Even more charismatic than before. What is your charisma and con now, then?
Both 18.
Both 18. Wow. Super strong and super. I mean, and listen, is there anything?
No, strength
sorry,
is 13.
No. I'm sorry.
Strength is 13.
I meant to say con and charisma. But what is more, honestly, Chad, more appealing than a super strong bird? I mean, what is more, more appealing and charismatic than that? So same question to you. Did you roll hit points yet? Then
I have not. Also, why is my face this big on stream? I can't change my camera settings because it's in things. So I have 1d10 plus
hold on
4.
a second. What do you mean? Why is your face this big on stream? Did
I
I?
feel like my face is so big on stream. Maybe I'm just really a confused person tonight. I feel like my face looks really big.
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't increase it that much. I went like that.
Well, I have researched big head modes for games for no reason at all whole day. Maybe it's
I
something
did
to
not
do with
put
that.
you in big head mode. I did not do that.
11.
11. All right. See, that's what we're talking about. So instead of 35, you now have 46 out of 46 hit points, and you do not have a level of exhaustion for reasons I have previously described. So only Brian is exhausted, but less exhausted than Brian was. So
Can I ask a quick question?
sure,
Of?
absolutely.
I obviously I haven't opened my character sheet since we last played, apart from to level up, which I did today. On my character sheet, but instead of intelligence and wisdom, I have willpower and psionics. Do you have any idea why?
What?
Ooh, you played Dark Sun.
Clearly,
You
that's
got
what happened.
my character sheet?
I don't have the faintest idea, but I'm going to go look right now.
Gonna have a good look at mine.
Let's see.
I know that willpower is the 11 and wisdom is 9 because I'm neither intelligent nor wise. But
I do not have that when I look at your sheet. I am looking at a strength, dex, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma as normal.
very strange.
Yep. And I have...
I'm going to just close it and open it again.
Yeah, it also does this weird thing where it puts the modifier up top and the raw score in the circle, which is just weird to me. But that's...
Yeah, no, it's willpower and psionics. It's okay. I know what they're supposed to be, but it's
Willpower and psionics. I have no idea. You might want to reload Roll20 altogether because I don't have any idea. I'm looking right at it and it does not say that for me. It says the just the basic the regular stats.
yeah, very strange. All right, I'll just nip out of Roll20 and go back in.
Okay.
Oh, apparently it's a known issue with Roll20.
Oh, is it?
I've just Googled it, yeah. 18 hours ago it was reported.
Oh, okay. In which
It's
case,
the weirdest known issue to have. Like, why would it do that?
Yep.
It all started. It's like it began when a certain person in Germany updated their graphics drivers. Suddenly, Roll20 broke, sound broke. Like,
yeah, strength, dex, con.
Someone's car breaks down on the highway. It's like, how is this possible?
Yeah, loads of people
man.
apparently are
Everything
affected.
is linked. Anyway, so sorry about that. As
I
long as you know what the
like
stats
Dark
are.
Sun.
Yeah.
I like Dark Sun. So if we
Psionics is all good and all that, but like, no, I don't.
I wish there was a 5th edition Dark Sun.
There has been discussion about what they will do when they switch over to the new, D&D next stuff and what they're going to put out there. I have been semi-rooting for Greyhawk for obvious reasons, but because we already got Eberron, which is my other favorite alternate setting for D&D, but who knows? I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, but it could be. Dark Sun would be one of the ones that would be a more reasonable one, and also Planescape that they're going to be doing. I heard that.
Oh God, Planescape!
I heard that they just had. I was talking to a friend of mine, Mike Underwood, who's my co-host for Speculate, the actual play show that I do, and he was saying that he saw the D&D live stream, I guess, that happened today, and he said that he was cautiously optimistic about Planescape. So that's cool. Maybe that will be the case. Although for this crew, I have a few things in mind about possible heists and things like that. It'll depend on how things work out. We got a long way to go with it. We got a long way to go with this campaign, though. So speaking of this campaign, let me bring you all over to the map and talk a little bit about what happened in our last session and set us up for what happens next. Let us remove ourselves from the bubbling pools, even though that stuff is all cool and all that. And let's see. Let's go with... how about I do some town stuff? Give me a town. Tabletop audio, not Icebound, not Medieval, but in fact, not Tinkertown, although that's promising. Let's go with Rivertown. Okay, which I hope is playing almost. There we go. All right, people should be able to hear that now, I think.
Not me. My sound
no.
settings prevent me from hearing desktop music currently, so I'll go without today.
Oh, okay.
I've switched back to Windows now, which means I've got the bug where I can hear the tavern music constantly.
Oh, it's not just me, because I've got that right now.
I swear to God, it's not playing. It's not on.
It's definitely playing. It's not loud.
It was playing when it
subtle.
literally said nothing was playing, and I could hear that music.
Yeah.
Actually, wait a second. That's weird.
Yeah, it is. It is weird.
Wait a minute.
I can hear like
How about now?
distant
How about now?
tap.
How about now? How about now? How about now?
Oh yeah, I
think
can't hear it anymore.
I think it's gone.
All right.
It's gone.
I deleted a track which for some reason has been playing and not being audible to me. So now now you should just hear Rivertown.
After how? What, a
Oh
year?
my god!
I have
Wow.
never.
Have you just had that song playing?
I
all
do
the
still hear the
royalties
taverns
that person must have earned.
It never show because I'd never hear it on my end on either the player or the other list. Oh my goodness. Well, see, you leveled to level 4 and suddenly your tinnitus just vanished. That's how this went.
Tavern tonight.
The tavernitis, if you will. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about what happened in our last session. That's very odd that it even had that. Okay, chat, you should be able to hear it a little bit too. Let me make sure that I've got sound there too. Okay, good. All right, so now you just hear some pleasant like guitar music and stuff like that, basically, is what you should hear.
It's well atmospheric.
Okay. All right. So, in our last session, the party had a very eventful session, actually, in which the party was able to defeat what was known as Thousand Teeth, a massive crocodile. And they were doing this to try to get the favor of the lizard folk, who, under the control of their queen, had, as it turned out, been preparing for war. That's what the party had known before, or suspected. What they did not know is what they were preparing for war against. As it turned out, the lizard folk are actually attempting to prepare for war against the Sahuagin, a race of evil water-dwelling creatures that are the enemies of many that live both on the coast and under the water. And in fact, the lizard folk had assembled a group of merfolk and many others who had gathered together to try to fight the common threat of the Sahuagin. One of the groups that they have therefore added to their list was the town of Saltmarsh and the land dwellers, whether they be humanoid or human creatures living on the land near the water. This is, of course, unprecedented. It has never been the case that the lizard folk have made an alliance with creatures that lived on the land that were not lizard folk. But strange times call for strange measures, one might say, or desperate times call for desperate measures. And so they have gathered together this alliance of people. The party managed to do several things to bring the lizard folk on their side, whether it was doing some training exercises where they had a chance to bond with each other and with the lizard folk, or whether it was befriending the hatchlings that were hanging out near the feet and legs of the party as they went about their business, or whether it was dealing with this Thousand Teeth, this crocodile. And even though the lizard folk do revere this creature, they also recognize that it was horrifically dangerous to their people and had killed many of them. And so the party dealing with this crocodile, and it was not an easy thing to deal with, they managed to do this and bring the head of the 10,000 teeth back to the party back to the lizard folk, which not only benefited them, it also benefited the queen and the shaman of the tribe, because there had been some that had disagreed with the queen's leadership, had felt that it was a mistake to negotiate with anyone outside the lizard folk themselves. But this has very much strengthened the queen's position, and obviously strengthen the party's role within it. And so that's the good news. The good news is the party beat the crocodile, did the job, and won the admiration and the respect of the lizard folk. The bad news is now they have to do this for Saltmarsh, because so far they have only said that they agree to this alliance. Now they have to get the council to agree to this alliance, hence the term for the adventure, Diplomacy and Doubt. In case anyone is curious, the party has done some other tasks for the council, but since we've been away for Saltmarsh for a while, it might be helpful to mention that the council is composed typically of 5 council members. One of them is Anders Solmore, who is sort of the party's, I guess guess you might say, patron. He and his servant, Scare and Wave Chaser, have been helping the party in their various endeavors and have been bringing them on board for a number of different tasks and so forth, while also trying to help the party in certain regards. That is what has been the case so far, and of course Anders is one of the people on this council. But there are others, and as we fast forward slightly to right before the council meeting, and I will give the party plenty of time to do what they want to do and chat with each other and all that kind of stuff after the council meeting. Like, I will give you an opportunity to do that. But I do want to mention that there is one significant development that the party needs to know about, and that is that the character Gellin Primewater, who is a member of the traditionalist group. You may remember that there are traditionalists who are the ones that basically want to, don't want to make sure that they kind of keep things on the down low, that they don't let the sea princes and other pirates begin to grow in strength again, and don't particularly care about the King of Kaelin's support either way. They just want Saltmarsh to be left alone. They also tend to be, how do I put this, not to put too fine a point on it, racist towards those that do not appear to be Saltmarsh types. Let's say that they would like to make Saltmarsh great again. Having done all of that, those are the traditionalists. And Gellin Primewater has been, it turns out, removed from the council since the party was gone. Now, part of this, the party may have seen coming a little bit, in that there were rumors that Gellin Primewater had been partially responsible for some of the attacks on the town, for the smuggling operation being run out of a allegedly haunted house. It turned out maybe not so much haunted house to the north of Saltmarsh, which the party dealt with much earlier. And so Gellin Primewater has been apparently removed from the council. Now, it is not clear how long this is going to last or what the implications of this are. However, currently it means that there are, instead of 5 council members, there are only 4. And it also means that the council currently is, and I'm being a little oversimplified. I'm simplifying this a little bit, but basically you have the traditionalists, and then you have also the loyalists. And the loyalists are the ones who are loyal to the King of Kaelin, of whom allegedly, at least Anders Solmar is supposed to be connected to them in some way, although he is officially remained neutral. So as of right now, you have 2 loyalists and you have 2 traditionalists that are currently sitting, or I should say, let me rephrase that. 2 loyalists, 1 traditionalist, and Anders. So if you assume that Anders is neutral, then you're basically talking Anders and then 1 traditionalist and 2 loyalists, and that is what the party has to negotiate. I'll also let the party know quickly, as a reminder, that the oldest member of the town council, who is a traditionalist, is a woman named Ada Oland. And Ada Oland was an ally of Gellin Primewater, who has now, as I said, been removed from the council. The loyalists on the council include 2 people. One, Eleander Fireborn, who is a very large man. In fact, it is rumored that he is a gladiator who once fought in the Royal Army of Kaeland before suffering a terrible injury, though he never talks about that time of his life. And the other one is the leader of a newly established mining operation in Saltmarsh, someone with whom Morthwheel is familiar, and that is Manistrad Copperlocks. She runs this mining outfit, and Morthwheel may remember that he has heard some rumors about issues with that mining operation in the past. So you've got 2 loyalists, Eleander and Manistrad. You have 1 traditionalist left on the council, and that's Ada Oland, and that's EDA, by the way, and then Oland is Oweland. And then you have Anders, for whatever Anders is, again, officially neutral, and you'll have to decide what you think he actually is supporting or not supporting. That's up to you. So you'll be dealing with 4 of these council members. I just wanted to lay that out there so everyone is clear, because it's been a while since we've been in Saltmarsh. Any questions from folks about stuff before we go into the council? And as I said, you'll have plenty of time afterwards to talk with each other and etc.
So that was Manistrad Copperlocks, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah, for probably obvious reasons, I may be focusing more on it.
I can imagine. Absolutely.
Ilienda, Ida, Enders, and the fourth one was...
So it's Eleander Fireborn is the name of the big dude who had an injury. He's one of the loyalists. Manistrad, Manistrad, and then Copperlocks, just like it sounds. Those are the two loyalists. And the traditionalist is Ada Oland, which is EDA space and then OWELAND, Oland.
OWE.
Also, Morthwheel, you would know Ada as well, and Silvo, you probably would also, because Ada is the owner of 3 fishing boats, and you've actually worked on 1 or 2 of those in the past. Ada is, from what you've been able to tell, now again, the traditionalists have these issues about like wanting things to remain the same. They are not in favor of the mining operation, etc. For what it's worth, Ada does not seem to have the same kind of make Saltmarsh great again tendencies that the other traditionalists tend to have. You have dealt with her probably in the past and found her to be tough but fair. And so just so you know, that she's kind of a neutral entity, you might say.
Who's the other traditionalist?
The other traditionalist was Gellin Primewater, but Gellin Primewater has been removed. Only one traditionalist. The council at the moment is not balanced. That's right.
Okay.
And you'll have to see how that plays into. That literally happened while you were gone.
Okay.
It's clear we need to get Waves elected to fill the gap.
To make that happen.
Also, I will be your campaign manager.
Also, Xanos. What is up, Xanos? I have not seen you for a while. Good to see you, my friend. Xanos is a very long-time Twitch follower, a person that I knew when I first got onto Twitch over 10 years, almost 11 years ago now. So welcome, Xanos. Good to see you, man. Okay. So, yes. So there we go. So they're standing. So you are being brought into the council, and I should actually bring you to Saltmarsh, I think.
Get us out of this hellhole.
Okay.
I've quite enough of lizards that are trying to kill me or recruit me for one lifetime.
That's right.
And then we're going to the council, so unlucky.
I was just going to say, it's going to bring you to this spa where you get saltwater treatment. No! Just kidding. Okay, so, no, that is not, in fact, what's going to happen. So you're going to be brought to the council. Pardon me for a moment whilst I get my map.
That's okay. I'm just uploading the latest entries of Silvo's journal to our Trello board.
Ah, lovely. Yes. Okay, I don't need that. Okay. Let's go on to the... I'm using the Roll20 setup, which is in some ways very useful, and in other ways is a little... They could have managed. It could have been a little clearer, I think, than they actually are sometimes. But okay. That said, though, I think I have found it. So, so the council is where I'm trying to make sure that we actually find ourselves, which is 14. That's what I thought. So down here is where you folks are. Oceanus is, sir, not appearing at this picture. Oceanus is away. So, yes, if you folks are able to head down this way to the council hall, that would be lovely. Okay. Now, when you are summoned into the council, and let's see, did I... There we go, we got that for... Okay, so now chat can see that too.
Sorry.
When you were summoned into the council... the person who is, of course, directing it is Anders, who's, again, technically the head of the council. And when you come in, Anders stands up, and you can see that sitting behind or standing behind against the wall is also Scarin Wavechaser. And Scarin kind of nods at you and smiles, kind of as if to say, like, good job, well done type of thing. And Anders comes up and extends his hand to all of you, basically, like kind of claps you on the shoulders / feathers, and make sure that he claps all of you. Is like, it's my great pleasure to welcome back the heroes of Saltmarsh. As you may have heard, the lizard folk threat has been eliminated, and I am looking forward to hearing exactly how that was done. From what we can tell, the lizard folk have stood down their preparations as far as Saltmarsh is concerned, which means I suppose we don't have to worry about war or conflict, which is wonderful news. And He comes around and he sort of grins at everyone around the council table and he says, "You can see that as we begin to make positive progress, that perhaps it's not just about killing and destroying everyone near you. But the council is anxious to hear what actually occurred in the swamps and what we need to know from the lizard folk going forward. How did you do it, basically?" And he sits back, steeples his fingers, and the others sort of all look at you as well. You notice that probably Eleander, this may be the first time you've actually seen Eleander at the council, but Eleander is a big, big guy who you can see is sort of has these super muscular arms, and he is kind of like has one eye very narrowed and is kind of staring intently at you as if to hear exactly how all of this was done. So he says this to the four of you, and any of the four of you can speak or step forward as you like.
I look between us and I'm just like, is anybody stepping forward?
I'm going to kind of like just stand next to Morthwin and kind of like shoulder nudge him forwards. What?
Probably the lowest charisma of the party.
Just nudge me forwards. Just nudge me forwards.
Okay.
Domino effect.
I nudge Silver.
Everybody takes a step backwards and Silver's like, is anybody just... Oh, okay. I see how this is. Right. So, the good news is, people of the Council of Saltmarsh, the threat of the lizard folk has indeed been eliminated. And with this, I'll walk over to... Can you explain the layout of the room for me? Like,
Sure.
Where are tables and stuff?
Sure. It is a fairly large room. It is an oval table, one central oval table in the middle, and there are chairs on either side. Anders is at the head of the table opposite where you are standing, and then there are two chairs on either side. Very nice, actually, elaborate-looking, fairly fancy cushion chairs on either side, although you notice that on the side with Ada Oland, and Ada Oland, by the way, has a iron gray hair, and is one of those like ageless faces where it could be like 50 or 20 or 130, you know what I mean? Like it's very hard to tell how old she actually is, but she is a human female, and so she is sitting in one of the chairs, and notably the other chair on that side of the table is empty. And on the other side, you have your Eleander that I mentioned before, and then presumably Copperlocks is on the other side also. Not presumably, okay. Morthwil knows that that's who it is, actually.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll approach the table, and I'll just subtly lean sit against the table. I'll be like, it was quite a brave tale, if I do say so myself. We travelled to Dunwater to try and find the threat that lay within the marshes there, and fortune favoured us, and we were welcomed with open arms by the lizard folk, who mistook us for travelling merchants. Using our cunning and our guile, we decided to sneak into their encampment to try and find out what their plans were with Saltmarsh, and actually it turns out the people of Saltmarsh and the lizard folk of Dunwater have something in common. They don't want to murder each other, but they are both looking for a wider threat. And with this, he pulls out, the scrying stone he got?
Mm-hmm.
He sort of pulls out and starts playing with it. I bought props, people.
Very nice,
bought
very nice.
Props.
Very nice.
So he starts playing with it. He's like, there is a threat to Saltmarsh. Of that is true. But it is not the lizard folk of Dunwater. In fact, they probably wouldn't be any more than an annoyance to the soldiers, the brave soldiers. I look over at the gladiator guy, whose name I can't remember because I'm in character. The brave soldiers who man Saltmarsh's shores. But there is a deeper threat that's going on under the surface. He sort of puts the scrying stone on the table and starts spinning it slowly. The Sahugan are rallying forces and marshalling armies and gathering weapons. And they are traveling and killing and burning in their wake with a force unlike they have ever had behind them before. This is the threat to Saltmarsh, and the threat that the lizard folk are marshalling an alliance against.
So there's a...
One...
Oh, go ahead,
go
sorry.
No, they can interrupt me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say because they're sort of like you hear this like mumbling among several of them, and Eleander kind of like sort of sits back and his eyes widen as you say this thing about the Suhugan, and then he looks over at Manistrad, who kind of has shot him a look. In the meantime, the Ada has sort of stares at you. Her eyes narrowed a little bit, and you also notice that Anders kind of shoots a look back at Scarron, who now you may have realized, having dealt with Scarron for a while now, that Scarron very seldom seems nonplussed by anything or sort of thrown out. This seems to have thrown him out. Like Scarron is kind of like has his eye, his head tilted a little bit, and he kind of glances down at Anders as Anders kind of looks back, and Anders has his hands kind of resting on the top of the table loosely, also staring. There's a lot of staring going on, is what I'm saying as you're speaking.
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of
things.
information being doled out
Yeah.
by Silvo in a very theatrical manner, I must admit.
Oh, yes, of course. So
No
they don't
one's
interrupt you
interrupting
yet,
me.
no.
Okay, cool. There's just murmurs, which is good. He likes
Right.
an audience. Where was I? Where was my train of thought? Upon entering this stronghold of these marauding lizard folk, we realized actually it was a refugee camp for people who had been driven out of their various homes. We spoke with some of the leaders of the lizard folk. They have quite a refined society, if I do say so myself. I'm passing a cursory glance over to the other council members. And they decided that humans, land dwellers, if you will, probably wouldn't accept an invitation to an alliance. But if we wanted to barter a treaty with them and we wanted to join forces, we just had to earn their trust. So we quite bravely went around their camp and conversed with them and showed them feats of our daring and our strength and our prowess. And as our time within the marshes came to a close, we decided there was also a medium threat to the lizard folk, a terrible beast known as Thousand Teeth.
Now I'll kind of look at each other, like, and
I lean
get a few more
over
murmurs.
to Eleander, and I go, a beast several meters long, with thousands of teeth within its gaping maw. You'd have loved it.
Eleander kind of.
Thank you.
And so Eleander kind of like does that, hears the sound from waves, and kind of like his eyes flash over, like his glance is over at waves and then back to you, Silvo. And he has this fairly thick, bushy beard which twitches, and you don't know whether that means in anger, excitement, interest, curiosity, fear, or what exactly.
So at this moment, Silvo's going to just hop off the table because he's been sort of semi-sitting on it. And he's going to slowly walk around this oval table behind the council members, sort of in between. I'm assuming Scarron Wave Chaser is like at the back of the room.
That's right,
behind
sort of like
Anders,
leaning on the back wall. That's right.
Yeah, that's fine. So between Anders and Scarron, I'll sort of look over at Scarron as I'm walking and talking. And we were told that if we could dispatch this terrible menace of the marshes, then the land dwellers like ourselves here in this very room would have proven their worth. And it was no mean feat, but collectively I like to think that heroic deeds are what we do best. So we slayed the beast, removed its head, and carried it with no small effort through the marshes to the lizard folk refugee camp. They were delighted and showered us with praise and celebration. I think there was even a parade at one point, and lots of gold, though more gold would be nice. And now we've traveled back here to deliver this news to you of the upcoming threat, this danger beneath the surface, and to allow you to make a decision whether or not you would like allies in this upcoming fight or not.
So there's this.
I'll have made my way all the way around the table now, so I'm now back at the
Okay.
front.
So there's this long silence, and everyone is just sort of looking up at Silvo, and then you can see they also are kind of glances to the other members of the party as well. And then Aleander, his beard still twitching fiercely, says, "When this council sent you to work to try to eliminate the lizard folk threat, I don't recall saying that what that meant was to become allies with them. I've dealt with the lizard folk before. They're great warriors. They're fierce. But they are no friends of ours, and they haven't been in the past. According to you, we ought to ally with them against the Sahuagin, and as far as I can tell, the Sahuagin have never ventured out of their own waters. So you're asking us to trust the word of creatures that have never meant Saltmarsh well in the past, and doing so based upon your glorious action." And he kind of stares pointedly at your scrying ball, Silvo. And then he says, Aleander says, "This council's job is to protect Saltmarsh, not to become a subject of the lizard folk, especially not without consulting the king first." And so Ada, across the table, kind of rolls her eyes a bit and says, "The only reason you don't know about the Sahuagin, Aleander, is because you spend too much time battling back goblins and other creatures of the woods inland. But for those of us with fishing interests, we know all about the Sahuagin. Although," and she kind of turns back in your direction, Silvo, roughly, "although, I must admit, the Sahuagin, it's true, don't generally band together. They're usually too busy in their own petty squabbles to be connected. Why exactly should we trust these lizard folk? Why should we trust that they mean us well?" And that's said again to generally all of you, so again, anyone could step forward.
Morthwill rises to his feet at that, the sound of his hobnails on his boots ringing on the floor. He puts his hands behind his back and starts pacing backwards and forwards, much like a lecturer presenting to a class.
Okay.
So as he's walking around, you see like the clang, clang of his shoes on the floor. He's like, "As I understand it from talking with the lizard folk, they've never been great friends of Saltmarsh because Saltmarsh never tried to be great friends with themselves. Now, the politics of it ain't my concern. I deal with the realities of facts. Facts such as those of you who have interest in the dockyards and harbours will have surely been aware that there has been a dramatic increase in the amount of ships needing repairs, of voyages returning with less crew than they set out with, of missing shipments, and fanciful tales more so than usual going around the pubs of monsters attacking. While the Sahuagin may not have been much of a threat, if they have been organized, they have been getting bolder. And if not them, then who? While the lizard folk are mighty warriors, they have little interest in attacking Saltmarsh. This was demonstrated when we visited their place of residence. There were families there. One does not keep families in a place preparing for war if it can be avoided."
And so they look at that, and then Manastrad speaks for the first time, and she says, "I've always known Morthwill to be sensible, and I've always known him to speak his truth and his mind as far as I can tell. But I must say I'm a little surprised, Morthwill. It's fair to say that there are lizard folk who may have their own beliefs, but are we really going to talk about what the lizard folk have as families now? These families, so to speak, have fought against us in the past. Yes, the Sahuagin have gotten bolder, perhaps. There may have been injuries to the boats, destruction to the boats before, but there's been destruction to our people also. Not that I am inclined to believe everything about those that are not exactly like us, but it's fair to say that we can't be sure about anything, and Aleander's right. We know that the lizard folk have posed a threat to us before. We do not know that the Sahuagin have posed a similar threat. And just because you found families there, as you put it, doesn't mean that they weren't trying to deceive you for their own ends. That is possible. And if it is possible, it means that other things, like mining interests, for example, could be at risk. And Anders, by the way, has been kind of like doing the kind of tennis thing of, looking back and forth, and then comes to you and sort of has a hand on his chin. And interestingly, right behind him, Scarron is almost mirroring the gesture, obviously unconsciously, sort of looking to see what you're going to say next. That's addressed apparently to you, Morthwheel, although, again, others could speak.
Well, there's a ting from his boots as he stops his pace, and he goes, "Oh, aye, mining interests. Now, before he went away to scout the lizard folk's situation, I'd heard some rumors that the local mines had been experiencing some trouble. What, you think the lizard folk have been laying eggs while you're not looking?"
Manistrad kind of like narrows her eyes, and she's like, "Very clever you are, to be sure. Perhaps it's not the lizard folk laying eggs. Perhaps it's a conspiracy that they've allied with other evil folk to try to cause problems for this town, since you remember your own report to this council about the smugglers in the house to the north. Clearly, others can work with them, and if they were able to work with them before, they might be able to work with them again in other ways. Maybe they didn't take out the mines directly, but they could have known someone who did. I would rather not trust those that I haven't been able to trust in the past, instead of taking their word on faith and families." And she kind of trails off.
I'd be willing to do for this council what we did for the lizard men, and put actions before words and look into the mine situation myself.
And she kind of, and so she says that, and Ada says, "Well, Manistrad, you couldn't really have a problem with that, could you? At least this one would know something about mining based upon what you've previously described. Or would you think a dwarf is also not trustworthy?" And Manistrad, the image of expression could kill. I would like you to imagine laser beams, right? The image of laser beams coming out. Manistrad just glares a hole, or would like to apparently, through Ada and says, "Perhaps while you're dealing with your boats and fish, we have some greater concerns with rock and silver." And Anders is like, holds up a hand. He's like, all right. There's enough time for the council to have its own petty discussions, and it doesn't have to be now. And he looks at the rest of you, and he was just gonna ask Brian and Waves, but go ahead.
Sorry. With that, Silvo just
Sure, you can do. Yep.
slams his hand on the table. Wherever he is, he's sort of wandering around the table at the moment. He slams his hand on the table to try and get the council people's attention, and goes, "This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. Nobody believes the intrepid adventurers that have gone out, proven themselves, and gathered evidence to the fact that something is going to come and murder you all in your sleep if you're not careful." Now, that's not a threat, but it was a threat to the lizard folk, and it's not just a ruse by the lizard folk that you need to be worried about. They were allying with other races. They were allying with the Locanth, and they were allying with merfolk, both of which said that there was a greater threat from the Sahugan. This is not a ruse from the lizard folk. And you four, I note the empty chair, you four council folk, fine upstanding members of the Saltmarsh Council, are taxed with protecting it. And yet you sit here bickering, whilst we, citizens and visitors to Saltmarsh, go out and put our lives on the line. Perhaps some evidence to the contrary would be sufficient. What is your interest in protecting Saltmarsh? What are you willing to do to protect the city that you love?
So I think it would probably be Manistrad, starts to say, "We're under no obligation to," but again, Anders holds up his hand, is like, "Enough. And there's justice in what Silvo says. I explained to you all before, when we first started working with these, that they might have a perspective which would be valuable to us. And the reality is that this council has had enough of its own internal problems and divisions to know that they may speak the truth. Moreover, they've given us no reason to doubt them in the past. Remember, it was I who sent them in the first place to this house north of the town, as you refer to it," he says to Manistrad. It was I who sent them and received their report back. It was them who exposed the smuggling operation in the first place. Is this an elaborate long play? First break down this criminal organization, then build them up again just to be able to attack you at your least notice? And he sort of lowers his hand slowly and he says, what about the other two? Brine and Waves. What do you feel? Do you have the same sense of who these are? It is true that the lizard folk have not been trustworthy with us in the past, or at least not friendly with us in the past. But ways change. Have they changed? And he kind of looks at both you, Waves, and Brian.
They might not have been friendly with you in the past, but have you been friendly with them? It works both ways. As my colleague said, we didn't meet just the lizard folk. We met other races of people that have banded together, that have witnessed the Sahuagin infiltrating and going out of bounds, going to places where they wouldn't usually target. There is something bigger afoot, bigger than Saltmarsh, bigger than the lizard folk, bigger than the merfolk. And I feel that if we neglect to at least consider joining these groups and fighting against the larger threat, then Saltmarsh will be lost, including your mines and your boats.
Anders nods and glances over at you, Waves.
Waves looks a bit nervous about what to say.
A moment of valor shines brightest against a backdrop of despair.
And then she repeats some of the words that the Queen actually says, and that I don't have on my soundboard right now.
Yeah.
About how she described the threat of the Sahuagin and that hissing lizard voice the Queen said how the Sahuagin were threatening the lizard folks and how they had to retreat into the caves and how they were looking for an alliance. And finishes up with,
This is no place for the weak or foolhardy.
And Anders sort of folds his arms and with a slightly smug expression looks over at Eleander. And Eleander sort of scowls, his beard bristling and twitching even more than before, if possible, and says, "There's no one here who ought to have an understanding of the cost of this more than me." And he pushes his chair back, and as he stands up, you hear a clop, not from a boot, but from a wooden peg. And you see for the first time that one of his legs is basically a multi-jointed wooden leg. And he says, "I lost this myself in battle while fighting for the king. I did it in the Dreadwoods, pushing people back, creatures back that would have threatened Saltmarsh. There isn't any reason to question anyone's valor here." And he kind of stares at you, Waves, and he says, "However, I also am mindful of past experience, and it may be that the lizard folk queen has painted you a pretty picture. But and he kind of shakes his head, I can't say for certain." And so he says that, and Manistrad says, "Instead of waving around the thing that you've waved around every time someone discusses courage in this chamber, Eleander, you might consider doing what needs to be done here. I still don't trust this situation, and simply dramatic words, said well, don't have any effect on whether or not there is something larger. The lizard folk, for the first time, have decided to ally with a group of other races, and perhaps they are building an alliance, but it could be an alliance to destroy us, rather than going after a group of people that have not typically come together before." And Ada, again, sort of shrugs across the table, shrugs and says, come before in a place that you could see them while you were breaking away your silver in the mines, Manistran. And so Eleander kind of sits down back at the table heavily, and there's a moment's silence while Anders is kind of maybe sizing people up, kind of on both sides, and he says, "It's fair to say that we don't know for sure." Was that Waves?
Yes.
Okay. It's fair to say that we may not know for sure, but we know in front of us that these people have been trustworthy before, and I'm inclined to believe them. And Manistrad sort of chuckles and says, "Fine. I'm inclined to believe that they've been deceived rather than being bad people. I'm not going to vote in favor of anything that puts Saltmarsh at risk."
Are they saying this out loud?
Yeah. Because they
At
seem to be
that, I'm just
debating
gonna
in front of you.
At that, I'm just going to lean forward and go, just so you know, I am really hard to lie to.
And Waves tries to speak up and, gobbling words together from dozens of voices, said, "Why not kill us and catch you blind then?"
And there's sort of a pause, and Ada says, "Well, it's a good question, isn't it, Manistran?" And Malistran says, "I don't know. Perhaps they thought you would be a more effective messenger for their deceit. Certainly more than a lizard folk representative would be. And you do ape their language very well." And so Anders and Skarin kind of, again, are sort of just listening to all of this. And Eleander has his arms folded, although he may not seem quite as, go to hell. He seems thoughtful a little bit, I suppose might be fair to say. And Anders says, "All right, if we were to take a preliminary vote, what would the council say? I am inclined to believe them and to go with this alliance if need be." And so he sort of raises his hand. And Ada slowly raises her hand, although she's looking at, basically back from Silvo, Morthwill to Waves to Brine, sort of staring at all of you as she raises her hand. And neither Eleander nor Malistrand raised their hands. And Eleander says, "I can't be sure as yet." And Anders says, "Well, at the moment then, we are deadlocked, although we've had a chance to discuss this more." And one of them, Ada, says, "Of course we wouldn't be deadlocked if you hadn't gotten rid of," and Anders holds up his hand and says, "A discussion is already passed, and it's not for this group to hear. So, we have at the moment a bit of a deadlock. We'll have to discuss this more. In the meantime, we are grateful for your report and your service. If you have need of goods or services, we should be able to provide the basics for you. And also, a reward, I think, is forthcoming." And he nods to Skarin, who brings forth this chest, small chest that he's holding, and he puts it on the table and opens it, and there are a set of gems in them. And he takes out 4 red gems and tosses one to each of you and says, "This should be suitable recompense for your services, at least right now," and closes the chest and steps back. Actually, Anders said that part. I wouldn't be Skarin. It would be Anders who says that. And Anders says, "We will let you know when the council has made its final decision. In the meantime, I am sure you have other things you wish to attend to in town, and we will wish you well until then, and thank you for your report." And he kind of stands and nods at all of you.
Morthwill leaves,
Okay.
stomping his feet loudly on the stone floor as he does.
Okay. The rest
I'm
of you.
gonna follow Morthwill.
Okay.
I follow Brine, but I look back at the council and say in their voice, "You aped their language very well," and go outside.
Mm-hmm.
Silvo stands for a second, not twiddling with his scrying stone. just his hands in his pockets, and he just stares at each of the council members in turn, and then bows slightly, and then leaves.
Okay, on the way out, Brian, you are just about to depart because you've already left the room, but and you are stopped then by Anders, and Anders sort of just by himself, and Anders says to you, "May I speak to you for a moment?"
Of course.
I, first of all, want to apologize for the council. It is, as you can see, not a pleasant group at the moment. We have our own internal divisions to deal with, and I am at somewhat of a... It's been a struggle to keep things in balance, I suppose. And he sighs and he says, "But our problems are not your problems. I am, however, intrigued by what you said, and I wanted to tell you about a possible thing which may be of assistance for us.
Please do.
There is a ship that was called the Emperor of the Waves. It was a big ship, and in the past, the Emperor of the Waves would carry much cargo from one town to another. But the Emperor of the Waves was sunk, or at least it was said to be sunk. And we have received information, received evidence that the Emperor of Waves has been spotted adrift in the Southern Sea. This seems impossible, yet there it is. So, the information that we have is that this ship, when it sank, had something aboard it. In fact, a lockbox within which was something enormously valuable. It is a weapon of great power. And if the rumors are true, it is a weapon that would be particularly beneficial against the Sahuagin. I don't know whether the council will be moved to make their vote in your favor or not. But if you were to be able to retrieve this weapon, it would go a long way towards convincing those who are not sure, in particular Eleander, to go to our side. I believe you, by the way, so does Scarin. But Scarin is not on the council, and I am but one voice, although I lead the council at the moment. If we are to convince them, we may need a little more persuasion than simply your word and the word of the lizard folk. I will do what I can in the meantime, but if you are willing to take this on board, I should be able to provide you a small ship with which you could make your way out and see for yourself if this Emperor of the Waves exists, and if so, if there is this lockbox and weapon on board.
Knowing my obviously extensive knowledge of the local
Yes.
waters, roughly how far away would that area be?
The Emperor of the Waves probably, if it's true that it is in fact in the sort of Southern Sea, it would probably take you a couple of days to travel there if you had a ship good enough to do it. Now, according to Anders, he's willing to provide you said ship, but you would need to actually know that it's actually that it's a ship that's functional and all that, and you don't know the details of it at all, of course, so far. But assuming that you're on a regular ship going on regular sail, probably a couple of days to get where they describe this ghost ship as sailing. I should also mention, by the way, Brian, you have certainly heard of Emperor of the Waves. It was a fairly famous ship. And so you would certainly have heard of it, even in terms of a warning tale to what happens to pirates when things go wrong, etc.
Is there a legend as to how and why it sank?
It is said that it sank in a particularly violent storm, and that the storm happened to correspond with a particularly daring pirate raid upon the ship. Both pirate ship and the Emperor of the Waves went down in this storm at the same time, and it's been said that it was punishment to the pirate ship that this happened. Of course, no one really knows why it would be punishing the Emperor of the Waves, but that sort of gets left out in the story.
Would I have known of the pirates that went down with it?
Their names are lost to history because this happened some time ago. Not ancient history, but they were probably just kind of the regular sort of kind of cavalier ships that you would see kind of just sailing along the coast very fast, not usually super well crewed, and in fact kind of surprising that they would even take on a ship the size of Emperor of the Waves, but certainly not kind of a named, not someone with, like say your reputation, Brian, that did this.
Okay. And then I'm talking to Anders again. Do you know more about this weapon in the lockbox? Do you know of what type of weapon it is?
It's uncertain. Some people say that it is a dagger of enormous power. Others have said that it is a sword, perhaps a short sword. And I have heard yet another claim that it is a flail. I don't know for sure because the weapon itself was not actually used in battle. It was held in check to be used in case there was ever an attack upon the Emperor of the Waves. Why it did not actually get used in the pirate attack upon it is beyond me.
I shall talk to my team. Do you have... I'm going to ask him, because obviously the Southern Sea is going to be quite large. I've got a map, haven't I? Because I had the map that we took when we went to the lizard folk.
Yep.
Can I get him to roughly point to whereabouts on the map
Yes.
the ghost ship was sighted?
In fact, I can probably do that for all of us. Let's see if I can switch that over. Let's see. Where is my Saltmarsh and environs? There it is. Let me bring the players over here, and let me bring chat over here. Okay. So Southern Seas would be like, put this out, like there. So it's not on this map, but it's off this way, in this direction. Probably, 100 leagues or more, maybe more than that, out off the southern coast. So, in fact, I'm trying to see if I can see it over on this. Yeah, I don't know whether this is going to work, chat, but I'll try. So, okay. So that blue blob that you all see there, players, is the Azure Sea. And this right here, can you see me? Yes. So this right here is roughly where Saltmarsh is. This right here, roughly speaking, not quite dead center of the Azure Sea, is where the Emperor of the Waves would be said to be. It should be noted, a fairly dangerous area in the Azure Sea, Brian.
Okay. I'm also going to kind of just make sure that no one's listening in by like just checking over my shoulder. And then I'm going to say, a hushed tone to Anders, will this do it? Will this, retrieving this weapon, will that bring the rest of the council on board?
It at least
All
ought to
of them?
bring, I don't know about all of them, but it will bring Aleander, I would think. With Aleander and me and Ada, it means that whatever Manistrad, I've got to get that name right, whatever Manistrad wants to do would be limited, especially now that the council is sitting at 4 members. Until that fifth member is added, I think that would be enough. Aleander is cautious by nature. He has seen too many examples of what happens when people trust needlessly. But I think he would have been impressed by you, and probably especially by Waves. He does appreciate courage and valor, and he appreciates those who don't stand down based on their beliefs. So, you may have won his respect, but he's not going to make a vote until he sees more evidence that we have a chance of surviving an attack.
And Morthwill mentioned that he was aware of some trouble that Manistrad had had in the mines. Do you feel that, he mentioned maybe stepping in to investigate, do you feel that that might bring Manistrad on board?
Possibly, if you could convince Manistrad when you go there that you're doing it to help and not to hinder or sabotage. Manistrad was put on this council in the first place by royal decree. They felt that the mines needed a voice, especially because of the importance of it for Caeland in general. The problem is that Manistrad, as you've seen for yourself, is impatient. She's a good leader from what I can tell with her own people. She's a good leader for the mines, and she's certainly smart. But she also is, well, and he kind of looks over his shoulder, more dedicated to her mines than the people of Saltmarsh, if I had to guess. So the answer is perhaps, but you'd have to convince her to have you take a look first, and or go in without letting her know you were doing it. I would leave it up to you, but there is... She's suspicious.
Which could be
I'll put it that way.
counterproductive.
Could be. I don't know. She is suspicious by nature, but it may be that the mines may be of importance to you at some point down the line, too. It is up to you how you want to manage things.
If I talk to my team and we do go and try to find the ship, the Emperor of the Waves, how soon can the ship be ready to sail us there?
I have already prepared, at least given them a little bit of information. When I heard that you were returning to town, I thought that it might be of value to keep this going. The ship I have in mind is called the Soul of Winter. It's run by a dwarven captain named Wolgar Windrune, one of the best. And I think, if you can ask Morthwill about it, he'll tell you that the Soul of Winter is known to be one of the strongest ships that we have. And his voice drops a little lower. The Council is not fully aware of this mission, so I would appreciate it if you, when you took the ship, did it without much fanfare.
Of course.
It's easier to apologize than seek permission, you see.
Of course. Just one final thing, and also this is to you, Arv. I can't remember. What did you say? What did you say that I could take to get rid of my exhaustion?
Oh, you can get rid of exhaustion through several ways, including another possible, like, long rest tonight. Like if you left tomorrow or whatever, you could get rid of it that way. The other way, I just want to confirm, one other way to do it. I don't need to hear about that. Right. Exactly. So, yes. So another long rest. So that's probably the best way. I think that it's possible that a restoration spell at the temple might also do this a little faster, but otherwise, simply getting rest, another long rest this evening should clear the rest of your exhaustion.
That makes more sense than a spell. Okay, yeah, that's no problem at all. Okay, and as I will talk to my team, can we speak maybe in the morning?
Yes, and if you don't get a hold of me, you can at least speak to Scarin. I wanted to speak to you directly about this. Scarin, you know, was convinced that the lizard folk were likely to be a threat. I think he was as surprised as I was to discover that perhaps they were more, well, sinned against than sinning, perhaps. But that's not stuff that the council was going to want to hear, not at the moment.
Like with most people, there are obviously some lizard folk that don't quite believe the same as the Queen, but on the whole, I found them incredibly civilized, and I feel that if we are able to work with the lizard folk and the merfolk and all of the other groups that are banding together, it could only be for Saltmarsh's benefit. And just think of the alternative if the Sahugan do attack and we are not part of their group. Saltmarsh would be lost.
Yes. And there are enough pieces on the board moving, that right now Saltmarsh is not in the most unified position. It will take some time to gather them together, and that's another reason to find this weapon. If you have it and can bring it back, it has some kind of a historical presence, and that might also unify some of the people of Saltmarsh. There are some good people here who are worth saving, and, well, Morthwheel has been among them for long enough to know, even Silvo for the last year or so. There are some who are worthwhile, and in the end, people of Saltmarsh may realize their own strength and wisdom if they've forgotten it at the moment.
I'm going to slap Anders on. I'm going to slap Anders on the back. That was my light. It was fine.
No,
I
it's
didn't
fine.
break anything.
Anders goes flying down the hallway.
It's just my green screen light. I slap Anders on the back very heartily and say, there are definitely people in Saltmarsh worth saving. Let me talk to my team.
Thank you, Brian. And again, keep me posted. If you don't find me tomorrow morning, Scarron should be able to help. And he nods and then, and he starts heading away and then turns. He says, as I mentioned, since the council doesn't know, I'd appreciate it if you keep this to just you and your members of your party.
Absolutely. And I kind of like tip my hat.
Okay.
In a knowing way.
He nods to you and departs. Now, while this conversation has been happening, which is about 5-ish minutes or so, Morthwheel, you were heading first, and Waves following, and then Silvo after that, and then Brian was stopped, as I mentioned. Morthwheel, where were you going?
Outside.
Just
out
in
to the
general,
street.
outside?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Getting the politics off.
Right. Well, then you're able to join with the rest of your crew,
Yeah.
except for Brian, you notice, is not there.
Yeah. So Waves and Silvo following me outside right now?
I'm following, and I'm like, and you can still hear me mumbling silently, you aped their words pretty well. You aped their words pretty well. You ape, you ape, you ape.
I am following, but I'm having a look down every corridor I can in every doorway, just to see what's going on in the council building. I've never really been in other than one time.
Oh, I assume this is once you got outside. But yes, it's not that big. It's mostly on the second floor is where you were, and then there are a couple of what look like offices, more or less, Silvo, with doors closed, and there are not as many people in the council hall at the moment as you might expect. It seemed, there are a few what you assume are like secretaries or staff people or whatever that are kind of walking about and giving and looking at you as you pass, but for the most part, it's fairly quiet, more quiet than you might have expected.
I rejoin Waves and Morthwheel outside.
Okay. So Morthwheel spits on the floor. He's just like, politicians. You could tell them it started raining and they'd start arguing over whether it has or how heavy it is. And then they'd blame someone else that they're soaking wet.
I gotta be honest, I didn't know politicians could be quite that bad.
You aped their word pretty well.
The Waves gets it.
I just don't understand why they can't see the threat in front of their face. Like, there's no reason why the lizard folk would have made any of that up.
I know they have to weigh up every move because of implications, but they move so damnably slow. And to accuse us of lying.
All they're doing is just bickering amongst themselves. All they've got is each other's throats in their hands, not the fate of Saltmarsh.
Some are looking for their own benefit. Some are trying to see the bigger picture. Some are looking at the bigger picture upside down. Some are looking at the bigger picture through a sodded keyhole.
Wow, that's giving me a royal headache, and I don't know about you guys, I could do with a drink.
Hey. Nail in a pipe sounds champion right now.
Crab wine? Crab wine sounds nice right about now. Hannah's probably missed us. Yeah,
sounds
I'll tell you
good
what,
to me.
I'm going to use one of my other props. I'm buying First round's on me.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, don't get used to it. I think I might still have the after effects of that poisoning from the marsh, to be honest with you.
So you're heading back to the snapping line, if I understand that
Yeah.
correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Quite enough dusty politicians in my face.
We should probably wait for Brian. She seems to have gotten lost on the straight
Yeah,
walk to the exit.
Where is she? Yeah, down the corridor.
Well, and actually, as you say that, after sort of muttering about politics and the like, you can see Brian is exits the hall and comes in your direction.
I'm just casually strolling. I'm not kind of hurrying or looking like I've got something urgent to say. I'm just gonna. Sorry, I was taking Poppy out for a wee. Where is everyone gathered?
Pretty
We're
close,
just
I think, to the
outside.
hall, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Silvo looks over to you and he's like, "Oh, there she is. Pub,
Pub.
pub. Fade 2 snapping line.
Okay. So while they're heading to the slapping line,
Slapping line. That's something completely different.
I was about to say the slapping 9, and I'm like, that's just
The
so
slapping-
unfortunate. I
that's
don't even want to
so-
get into what that means.
Oh,
The
that's
snapping
that's the
line.
secret cabal that's
Right.
underneath Saltmarsh.
That's the
slapping-
secret place. The
There's
slapping
9
line.
council members just slapping each other constantly.
Yeah.
Maybe even tickling.
The 9 have slapped each other. The 9, they have slapped each other on the River Morthwilling.
Quickly,
Anyway.
send a raven. The slaps have commenced.
The slaps have commenced. Chat, you are
Gondor
watching.
calls for slaps.
And Rohan will answer. This is episode 369 of Pen and Pixels. You are watching the amazing D&D with GOG crew of Pyron J, Darksaber 2K, Mike Smith, Peripheral Mike, and Ananda, all 4 of whom are amazing, awesome role players playing Ghosts of Saltmarsh as we play what I have called today Diplomacy and Doubt, and I hope I have appropriately titled this session. As we are doing this, we are going to be with you for about another hour, and chat, if you like what you see in here, please follow the channel. Please support GOG.com by subscribing to the channel, as many of you have followed today, which is great, and a couple of subscribers, including some Marvin Elleron guy who just resubscribed with his Prime sub. And while you're at it, please consider supporting each of the individual streamers and their various channels and endeavors and things like that as well, because they're all good people and you should do that. Okay, with that said, so when you head to the snapping line, to be clear, you notice that when you arrive at the snapping line, it seems rather more quiet, perhaps, than you might expect. Now, it is middle of the day, so it's, not going to be as busy normally, but even by that sort of context, there's a little more that you would have, you're a little surprised that it isn't a little bit louder, but when you come into the tavern, you can see that Hannah is indeed behind the bar, but she seems to be kind of, Silva, you noticed this in particular, kind of tired, almost, like her face seems a little drawn and she looks a little pale. But when she sees you, she brightens up and, "Oh, well, it's about time you made your return. Where you been, Silvo?"
I'm gonna motion sort of to a big empty table for the others to go sit down. I was like, crab wine all round.
Grab wine.
Yeah,
Grab
yeah,
wine.
yeah. All right, I'll be with you in a second.
Mother starts filling his pipe.
I'm going to go over to the bar and sit up at the bar. I was like, well, as now a triumphant hero of Saltmarsh, I had to declare our actions to the council, no less. I know. Fancy pants. Now I might have to buy a clean tunic.
But you have to be, Silvo, you're being careful, aren't you? The council's there's been a lot going on here since you've been gone over the last few days,
Yeah, I noticed Prime Water's seat was empty. So,
Well,
what do you know about that? What happened? Are there any rumors? What happened?
and she kind of,
Was he murdered?
and she says, "Well, all right, hold on.
All right.
Here, first of all, and she pours a mug. I've just got some of this new stuff in, and I hope that you'll like it. It's got a bit of a kick to it. It's called the Boar's Tears." And she kind of pours it into the mugs and hands out 4 to the 4 of you, assuming all 4 of you want mugs.
Nice.
No, not you, Waves. So then just the three, Silva, Morthwill, and Brian. And she says, is there anything you'd want, Waves?
I would like a vodka martini, please. Very dry with olives, a lot of olives, like at least 3 olives.
So she kind of blinks at you, and she's like, I'll do what I can. And she goes back and
how long you sat on these sours.
yeah, that was a very niche one. I did not like.
Oh wow!
So she just she pulls out a bottle and pours this sort of, and while she's doing this, she's just looking at you deadpan, like not even looking at the bottle as she pours this into a mug. And then she takes another clear liquid, pours that into a mug. And then she takes something which looks vaguely greenish and sort of small and circular and drops it into this mug. And she picks
At least
it up.
3?
Yeah, that's true. She does do 3. Yes. You don't know whether they're olives, but they are green. And she kind of pushes the mug across to you and she says, I hope that's dry enough. And she kind of blinks.
Can I do a perception check to see what they are?
I'll now do something that Waves hasn't done before. And Waves, still very apparently in a bad mood, picks her beak into the glass, pulls out one of the greenest things with the beak, and just swallows them like that way.
Okay, so Brian, as you're starting to look, then Waves does that. So
I'm sorry, just Brian looking. None of us have seen Waves eat yet.
Oh, that's true, actually. Well, no, but I meant Brian was looking to see what the green things were, and before you could do that, this actually happened. Thank you very much, Echo, for the 72 months of support. That is, by my count, 6 years of support. Thank you so much, Echo, so much for doing that. I appreciate it. Yes, on the rocks. Yeah, so Brian was looking for that. Brian, you have no idea because by the time you're looking, Waves has already got this stuff down her beak. But I would say that as you're not sure what exactly it was you're reading. You want me to read out loud? I'd like a subscription with GOG.com, please. Oh, I'd like a subscription with GOG.com, please. And it must be 72 years old. Yes, not 24, not 48, but 72. Because I love GOG.com and its amazing stream team. Make it as much DRM free as you can, please. Thank you. On the rocks. Shaken, not stirred. I added that last part.
Nice.
Somewhere at this point, the mug should start dissolving. Yeah, exactly. Like
Pan-galactic gargle blaster.
Good stuff, Echo. Yeah, so as far as what the stuff is, you're not 100% sure that this is an olive. It may be more like matted grass ball, possibly, that was vaguely green. But what you can say, Waves, is that as you're drinking this stuff, you don't know exactly if this is a vodka martini, but you sure do know that this feels very much like alcohol designed to hit directly to the liver and not pass go. If any of you have ever had the experience, I have not because I don't drink, but I have heard rumors of those who try to drink, let's say, Everclear, or perhaps Goldschlager in certain contexts without the gold part. This one is kind of it goes down smooth and then with an ice spike through your liver when it hits. It is a little, type of, it's quite strong, Waves. In fact, so strong that since you did beak down this whole thing, I assume that I think you guzzled it, basically, as I understand this correctly.
I first eat the 3 green things in a very bird-like way, but I usually don't do.
Right.
And then I'm going to chuck the whole thing.
Right. I would like a Constitution saving throw, please.
Okay, I get that. I totally understand.
Silver just looks over and is like, I've literally never seen Waves eat before. That's not the most disturbing thing I've seen this week, but it's still
19.
19. I mean, listen, you're like, woo! You're like, that cleaned out the sinuses. I imagine that all of you seeing this could probably see Waves' feathers just slightly ruffle and then just like, puh, like, the beak comes out and Waves kind of glaring at all of you. You can say and do whatever you like, Waves. You've a little bracing, you know what I mean? Let's go, but you're fine.
Yeah.
Hey, well, cheers. And I down mine.
Okay.
cheers, clink.
your boar's tears do not create the same effect as the whatever death brew that was just made for waves. But you were able to drink happily, and then Hannah, after a minute, comes over, and she says, "I hope that all fit the bill." And she kind of looks at you, Waves. I mean, I hope that worked. As she kind of stares down at you.
I agree.
So she nods, and she says, "Good. It was an improvisation, but..." And she says, "You asked about Gellin before, Silvo."
Yeah.
Well, Gellin's been removed from the council. In fact, he's been shipped to Seaton to face charges of smuggling. Eleander is the one who finished him off, found some evidence that he might have been involved. There's still a lot of dispute about it, though. A lot of people on the traditionalist side suggest that it was all trumped up and it wasn't actual evidence, and that it must have been the loyalists who did it. And then everybody follows their own patterns, you know the deal. But in any case, he will perhaps find a way to get around it. In the meantime, it means the traditionalists are in a foul mood, and the loyalists are feeling their oats. It means that things are out of balance, and that's not a good thing here.
Well, to be fair, Seaton's got his fair share of cantankerous sods, so Prime Water can just join them and just spit and splutter for a while, get them out of our hair. So why is it so dead here at the minute?
Well, there's been, concerns. There's been some movement around Saltmarsh. It all happened around the same time that you left. They got word that there might be some gnolls and trolls coming in from outside, from the Dreadwoods. They haven't actually shown up yet, and the town guard hasn't reported anything, but it means everyone's on edge. So most people are either staying home or going from work directly to home, and they're certainly not spending much time here. It's not good for business, but I can't blame them. Things in Saltmarsh have been a little strange over the last month at least.
Yeah. How are you holding up with things?
And she shrugs and looks around, and she says, "Other than not having anyone here to serve to, except yourselves, I'm managing. But the problem is, the places where people get together commonly, well, that's here. As it was, you remember, when you broke up that fight between the Loyalists and some of the dwarves that were there, the Traditionalists and some of the dwarves that were there? Well, I don't know that situation's going to get any better. And right now, if anyone came in here and decided to start a fight, most of the guard is at the outskirts of town watching to see about this army that might be coming. They're working with a skeleton crew. It's not going to be easy for them to keep the peace here or at the mines."
All right, well, if things kick off here, you've got that safe room downstairs. Lock yourself in the basement. If things get unruly, furniture can be replaced, all right? Just get yourself to a safe place.
I will, but what about the rest of you? What'd you find in that marsh?
We'll be all right. We found a giant crocodile and cut its head off.
And she sort of looks at you and then blinks and kind of like looks at the three of you as if for confirmation.
That's
really?
a moment where Silver's just starting to play with his grindstone again. He's like, "Told you, hero."
And she sort of hears that and she's like, "I'll take that as a yes." And sort of steps back and nods and says, "All right then, you fought a big crocodile. Why?"
Well, basically, Saltmarsh thought the lizard folk were marshalling an army against them. They're not. They're
against
just trying
us?
to protect their own lands. Yeah, they're not. They're just trying to protect their own lands from someone called the Sahugan, the Sea Devils, basically. So they're getting an alliance together of different races. They've got Merfolk, they've got Quaelinth, they've got loads of people that I've only ever read about in books. It's amazing. I've never seen people like this. Even Sea Elves, like it's unbelievable. All the stuff that I used to get told as a kid that was just like fantasy and legend. It's actually real. It's actually out there. But yeah, they're trying to get an alliance together basically to protect themselves from the Sahugan, who are kind of marshalling forces and being a bit uppity and, stepping on people's toes and stuff like that. And But the Council of Saltmarsh thought that the lizard people were the threat, and now some of them still believe the lizard people are the threat. Even though we've been to Dunwater, we've had a look, we've earned the lizard folks' trust by killing said ginormous crocodile. I mean, I don't want to brag, but it was almost single-handedly my doing, and I try and say that as quietly as human.
And she kind of like her eyes lift and it like slowly shift between Waves and Morthwill and Brian.
Well, Morthwill's got his head down. He's like tinkering away on something. We just hear him go. Plus, we were in a hurry.
Brian just rolls her eyes and sips a drink.
I immediately realized there's no getting that past Hannah, and I'm just like, yeah. Well, I mean, I helped, so you know.
And she says,
"All right, I was there. Okay, I was there.
I'm sure you were there." And she says, "Now you lot have got to make sure you don't get him killed. All right? I thought that when going with you that you'd all, take care of him, protect him, keep him from being an idiot, that sort of thing."
He's still alive, Hannah. What more do you want?
I want to make sure that he's not getting into, things he can't do. And now you're talking about alliances and Sahuagin threat and the lizard folk and Saltmarsh sure to be crushed in the middle.
Well, we are compiling a list of the things he can't do. We're finding something new every day.
And she nods and she says, "Oh, I've got a list I could add to that if you like."
All right. Let's not pile on Silvo here.
And she grins.
Morthwill looks up and just winks at the pair of you and goes back to tinkering.
There's many things I can't do, all right? I can't do a standing backflip. Turns out I can't breathe poisonous water. Don't ask Hannah. Turns out I can't throw myself off a boat unaided. Don't ask Hannah. There's lots of things I can't do. I can't, buy a house. I can't, loads of stuff. I can't
You can't die.
Sneeze without, let's not bring that up. Let's just...
And Hannah like reaches forward and takes the half empty mug from Silvo and basically takes it away and is like, "The other thing you can't do is any more drinking. You've had enough for today. I'll bring you back some water." And she turns and walks back to the bar.
"Same again for me, please."
Shaking her head.
And me.
Waves, do you say anything? Still like, the alcohol coming from your pores, as so to speak.
Yeah, wait. Oh, I have something to say.
Cup of tea?
and she kind of,
Brilliant.
and she says, "Cup of tea? Am I a general store over here?" And she's like, "Oh, fine." And she brings over with a huff 2 mugs of, again, Boar's Tears for Brian and Morthwill. She hands you what looks like the equivalent of a kid's cup of some clear liquid, which is clearly water. Yeah. And then she goes off and says, "I'm going to go boil some water for tea," and goes back into the kitchen to do that.
I turn to the others whilst drinking my sippy cup of water and go, "I'd be mad if she hadn't have dragged me out of so many gutters in drunken stupors in the past. So I know she's only looking out for me."
Hey, she definitely cares about you a great deal.
Yeah, well, when I first got here, there was very few people who did. Hannah's been more of a refuge and she's the sister I never had, if that makes sense. And when I first got here, I roll my sleeve up and I'll show them the tattoo. I'm like, this and whatever's in here caused quite a lot of nightmares. So I drank probably more than I should have. And Hannah was always there to throw a bucket of water over me when I had a bit too much to drink. So I don't know, it's nice that she's still looking after me.
Is there anybody else? Now Hannah's walked back over to the other side of the bar. Is there
She's
anybody
actually
else
back in the
earshot?
kitchen. And no, there's no one else right now in the tavern besides you, Brian, and your companions. She's back in the kitchen, apparently boiling liquid.
I'm going to kind of lean in and kind of gather people slightly closer so that I can whisper without...
A secret?
Hey, watch me components.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to touch your cogs.
I'll just... Hands off his cog.
My mysterious cube, which the shield toad came from, is currently dismantled on the table.
Gotcha.
When we left the town hall, Anders had something quite interesting to say. He seems to think that we might be able to persuade at least a majority of the council to back our idea of joining with the lizard folk. However, in order to do this, he feels that we need to go and find a ancient magical weapon which apparently sank alongside a ship called the Emperor of the Waves. I'm sure you've heard of it. I know I have. It was apparently lost at sea in a great storm when attacked by a pirate ship that was also lost at sea. However, apparently this ship has now been spotted in the Southern Sea. It's around. I'm showing them the map. It's going to be around here. He seems to think that he can provide us with a ship, the Soul of Winter, and it would be a 3-4 day round trip to go. And if we manage to produce this weapon, it could unite the rest of Saltmarsh into at least a majority of Saltmarsh to stand behind.
Side note, Morthwell, you've heard of Soul of Winter. It is considered a pretty good, sturdy boat, largely because it's crewed by dwarves who are reliable. Sorry,
I thought you were going to say largely because he helped build it.
And
Also that.
And also that. Yes. Sorry, on you go, Brian.
I'd pretty much finished.
Okay.
But if we were going to do it, we would probably need to do it now and pretty quietly. Well, in the morning and pretty quietly. What do you think?
I think in the morning we've definitely earned a bed rest.
I need some bed rest. I'm still incredibly tired.
Why is it a secret?
Well, Anders feels that, apart from the fact that we might not find it, Anders feels that we shouldn't raise attention to the fact that we're going to look for this. So maybe keep it onto wraps until we find it.
I can see people being interested in it for their own purposes.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I get that. But why are we keeping it a secret?
Why would we advertise it until we found it?
Well, no, that's fair. Why? I have so many questions. Why is a weapon on a boat gonna help unite Saltmarsh?
Anders doesn't know what the weapon is, but it is apparently a weapon that he feels could unite the rest of Saltmarsh. It is. He doesn't know what type of weapon it is. It could be a dagger. It could be a short sword.
That'd be a
Could
pretty impressive dagger.
Could Morthwell do an Arcana check to see if he knows of anything that he maybe read about?
I don't think Arcana. I think a history check would be
I'll give
more
one of those a
appropriate
try.
here.
I look at Brian and
13.
I'll come back to that in a second. Go ahead, Waves.
why nobody get weapon yet?
Well, the ship, according to Anders, would I have known I'm assuming that I would have presumed it was at the bottom of the sea.
That was the assumption. The Emperor of the Waves was thought to have sunk some time ago, and maybe lost in this great storm. I mentioned the whole pirate ship thing being associated with it, but the assumption was because, as I said, it was a big ship. So the fact that it never resurfaced meant that it's not so easy to hide something that is that size. But the details are unclear, except that it did carry a lot of rich and sometimes magical cargo from one place to the next across the Azure Sea. In fact, there was a rumor, Brian, that at one point the ship might have even carried weapons for Ayuz, which is, of course, an evil name in Greyhawk, a demigod of great power. And so there were some rumors that it might even have carried stuff for that sort of thing. It wasn't strictly an evil ship. It was kind of neutral. But the point was, it was like, if you wanted something to get from one place to another, you generally chose the Emperor of the Waves because it was a strong, well-defended ship. So, yeah. And I should mention quickly, Morthwell, you don't know, with a 13, you don't know a whole lot. You you definitely do know one thing about the history of the ship, which is if the Soul of Winter, which you worked on yourself, is a very seaworthy vessel, and of course it's way smaller than the Emperor of the Waves would be. The Emperor of the Waves got that name sort of for justified reason. It was a very surprising thing that it sank, even though it must have sunk because no one's ever seen it again. But it was sort of, to jump out of game for a minute, akin to when people found out that the Titanic sank. Jokes aside, the Titanic was supposed to be a ship that couldn't sink, that was impossible to sink. And so the Emperor of the Waves was, for that to go down is like I mean, it's not as big as a modern ocean liner, but it was a very large ship. And for it to go down means that something serious must have happened to it. It was surprising to shipbuilders at the time that it sank. But as far as what was on its specific, I'm sorry, I just want to say, but sorry, as far as what, just to answer the specific question Worthwell asked, but as far as anything specific that was being carried magic-wise, you don't know about a weapon in particular. Sorry, Brian.
I was just going to say, aren't you fascinated as to how such a majestic ship, such as the Emperor of the Waves, could just suddenly reappear now? I think we need to go and investigate. There might be all kinds of treasure on there. I'm looking at Silvo now.
I'm just as curious as what sunk it in the first place.
I'm more curious as to what we're getting paid for this.
Well,
They only want the weapon back off it.
Yeah, I mean, the weapon, I think, would be treasure enough. But we know that the Emperor of the Waves carried a wealth of cargo. I'd imagine it would be a substantial reward on its own.
Now, and then both will pull from his bag of holding, pulls out the book, Legality of Letters of Marque. Now, I believe we are officially operating under the authority of at least one council member on this mission. So he starts leafing through the book, cross-referencing rules and specific legalities of maritime salvage operations.
It's an open water. It's fine.
So what you're telling me is we're not getting paid for this, and there might be something at the bottom of the ocean in a sunken ship under millions of gallons of water that we have to go find.
It's not sunken. It's been seen on the surface of the water.
By
you know how you
crazy
sort of
drunk Pete? It's
you know how you've
ship.
paid yourself on some of our expeditions. Now, don't lie, I've seen you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That candlestick back in the mansion, for instance.
Yeah, and that was worth bloody nothing. I carried that around. I nearly got killed by a skeleton because of that thing. I fell over it twice. I clanged it against the door. I nearly poked your eye out with it at least once. And it was worth about 10 gold. That was about it, because it was all gold plate.
But we didn't have this at the time, and I pat the bag of holding.
How many of them can you make?
Technically just the one. It's not so much how many can you make, it's how much can it hold. And as I recall, this ship was, if not the fanciest, one of the fanciest ships of its time, certainly one of the largest. And you don't use that for hauling copper, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
And,
okay,
I mean-
I'll be an unpaid intern on your little fishing expedition.
No, not unpaid, self-paid.
Self-paid intern. All right, I suppose. I mean, to be fair, there's probably a number of people, considering I kind of burned a bridge with the Viper Sisters, and I've probably annoyed at least one council member given my little speech. I'm probably safer off surrounded by you dangerous lunatics than I am by other dangerous lunatics. So hell, I'm on board.
I look at Waves. What do you think?
Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
I completely agree. However, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Speaking of which, when are we leaving? Because I'd like to just nip to a couple of shops first, because I ain't got no weapons.
I need a good night's sleep. I'm still exhausted after our battle with the crocodile.
Thank goodness. I thought you were going to say we need to go now. I'm like, I would like to sleep in a bed that isn't on a boat, please. One quick question: what are we doing about these supposed beasties in the wildlands? Should we be concerned about this? Is there anything we can do?
We'd have to go all the way back. Oh no, sorry, wildlands, not swamplands.
Yeah, not swamplands.
I was thinking of the other
reason
little
loads of
beasties.
people- Yeah, no, the reason loads of people aren't here at the minute.
Yes.
We can't solve every problem at the same time. I mean, imagine, I would imagine if this weapon does exist, it would put us in a much better position to protect Saltmarsh as it is and bring the council on board when it comes to joining forces to fight the Sahugan.
And I suppose Hannah did say that all the guard are on the outskirts of town protecting it. So it just means that the center of town just has less guards. So kind of that means if any rough stuff goes down, there isn't going to be a guard within easy reach. So I guess it is kind of protected already. It just, I don't know. I've worked with some of those guards before. I've been arrested by a couple of them. They're not very good.
From inside
all
the
right.
kitchen, you hear a tea kettle whistling.
All right, so we'll have some tea. We'll rest up, and then we'll go find a sunken floating ship. How about that? And I will steal everything that's not reclaim everything that's not nailed down, and half of what is.
I'm looking at Waves. What do you think?
Waves moves her head like she's thinking about it, but comes down to
Treasure.
Mothwell?
Sounds good to me.
Speaking my language.
So Hannah comes back with the tea, and you can, or at least you think so. It's steaming liquid anyway, Waves, and puts it down, and you can see that there are a number of dark leaves that are kind of floating in the water on the top of it. And she says, all right, you can use that. If you want the tea leaves, you can just sort of, I don't know, pick out with the spoon, or I don't know. I don't serve tea here most of the time, and I hope it works. And she kind of turns around sort of and mutters to herself about, not some kind of a diner as she walks away.
Has she gone back into the kitchen?
No, just back to the bar at this point.
Okay.
And you folks can tell me if you want to, if you've had enough conversation, like if you've done this part and you want to jump ahead, that's up to you.
I would like, if we are getting ready to leave, once we are leaving, I'd just like to speak to Hannah in private, just for a second.
Okay.
But that's only when we're like packing up to go.
Okay.
I'm fishing the tea leaves out of this brew.
It smells good though,
Oh,
Waves.
for God's sake.
I'm just
And then
finishing
I-
reassembling my cube.
And then I again do the beak chucking. In this case, just clamping the whole little cup in my beak and just chuck it. Still somehow annoyed, and you still can hear me like, you aped the words very well.
Yes, and as you sort of chuck back the tea, it is indeed it's quite hot. I mean, it is steaming, so you're a little bit like not a little bit of a hot throat, so to speak. But the aroma seems to have properly foreshadowed the taste, and indeed it is a quite strong. You get the impression that Hannah may have brewed this a little bit longer than you normally are supposed to, but it's a quite strong, pungent kind of a black tea. You don't know exactly what the leaves are per se, but it seems quite strong and is has that kind of strong English breakfast Earl Grey, English breakfast really sort of flavor to it.
Okay, I look over to Hannah, give her a thumbs up, and say,
Impressive.
And Hannah sort of nods and then shakes her head. It's ridiculous. type of thing. Okay. So, assuming that the three of you are now, Waves and Morthwell and Brian are going to pack up, Silvo, you can chat briefly with Hannah.
Cool. I'll just take it to one side a second. I'll be like, "Are you all right? You look a bit pale. I wanted to know you were okay."
I'm fine. It's just been, well, since the guards moved around to the outside, there's been, well, noise outside and some fistfights in the street, and, well, it's been sometimes hard to sleep. The other night, someone was pounding on the outside of the tavern door. The doors were locked. We were already closed for the evening, and I opened my window and told him to be gone and to have enough, and that was it. But they looked up in my direction, but they had a cloak and a hood on, and I couldn't see their face. And they just sort of hissed at me, they did, and then they went off on their own. Since then, well, I don't know. I've been having a hard time, I suppose, getting any sleep. Mostly just relating to what's going on in the town, I guess. But, well, it sort of unsettled me, I might say. But I'm fine, Silvo. I'm more fine the more I know that you're not going to do anything foolish like get eaten by crocodiles, say.
Oh, no. I'd stab my way from the inside out. This person, did you notice anything take yourself back to that moment when you were hanging out your window shouting at this person? Do you notice any smells, maybe like incense or anything like that?
I was too far above it to be able to smell anything. It was on the second floor. I just thought it was odd that I couldn't see any face. It was dark for sure, but there was some light in the road, but somehow I couldn't get a look at it.
All right. Well, I tell you what. I know some of the orphan kids in the area, some of the bigger ones anyway, some of the older ones. If I have a word with them, they'll keep an eye on the tavern while we're away. So you'll at least have someone, even if there's no guard nearby. We've got kids in some of the abandoned buildings that are, 17, 18, 19, that sort of thing. So we'll be able to, if I give them a bit of money, they'll, they know I'll look after them. So,
Silvo, I don't need to be protected by a group of children living in houses, random houses.
Listen. You listen to me. You're the closest thing I've got to family in this dump. Other than these lunatics that keep trying to get me killed, you're the closest thing. You're the reason I'm still me at the minute and not some godforsaken wastrel in the streets. So you let me do this and we'll be all right,
And she kind of, and she kind of looks at you, and then she sort of dabs at her eye, clearly just, scratching the side where she must be have an itchy eye. Certainly there would be no other reason to do that. And says, all right, fine, well, get on with you then, and go get some sleep. There's a room upstairs for all of you, your usual room. It's not like anyone else is staying here right now. And, make sure you put the towels on top of the bed when you leave them tomorrow morning, mind. And
of course we will. We're courteous. We're heroes now.
And she sort of looks at you and smiles and kind of gives you kind of a quick sort of just tap on the, sort of puts her hand on your shoulder for a moment, and then, all right, well, what are the rest of you lot looking at? And she turns around and, starts working on something extraordinarily important, like polishing a wooden mug or something.
All right, I'm going to join the others. I presume the others are outside at this moment.
Either that or we're heading. I don't know if you're going to do that or you could do that. You could go grab some stuff at the shop. It's probably early afternoon by now. You could also go. Your room is available to you at the tavern, so it's up to you. The inn/tavern. So it's up to you how you want to handle things.
Okay. Personally, I would like to go do some shopping, then do a quick visit somewhere, and then I would meet people back at the tavern to rest up. Okay. I don't know what other people want to do, if they want to go shopping or want to get supplies or do other RP related things.
Let me run through that one by one. Let me start with Waves. Yeah. Waves, do you have any shopping that you want to do or things of that nature?
No, I don't. Let me quickly check, but I think I've not really used stuff. Oh, yeah, I lost a crossbow. But that was too expensive.
Yeah.
But you now have a red gem. Maybe that will cover the cost.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Maybe get it appraised first instead of just swapping it for a crossbow.
This is worth 500 gold. Oh, sure. Crossbow's 25.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Service fee.
Oh. Service fee, inflation. The economy is a disaster at the moment. So.
Yes.
Okay. I take out the red stone and show it to Morthwell, and I shrug, and with a questioning head tilt, I say,
Treasure.
Can I appraise them? Would I know a rough market value for them?
You might be able to.
Okay.
Let me take a look, actually. At,
Let me just adjust some lenses on my eyepiece.
Right, exactly.
They just get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
I would ask you to make a nature check for me to do this appraisal.
Okay.
It's glass.
15. It's definitely shiny.
Definitely shiny. No. You would probably guess that this is probably a fairly valuable gem that is probably worth somewhere between maybe 50 and 75 gold pieces, if you had to guess.
Oh. It's probably worth between 50 to 75 gold pieces. Of course, that's probably more city prices, mind. You might have to haggle a bit to get something approaching the value.
I nod and put it away, and then I make several crossbow sounds like plink, 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 plink. And stare at Morthwell. If you don't do anything, I'm going to do another plink.
Didn't I give Waves a crossbow at one point?
That you might
yes, but you also saw that she was critical of it.
Right. Oh! No, to be fair, it was rubbish. No, that's right. No, that was one that was given to us. Yeah, I wouldn't be caught dead with something like that. That's why I gave it away.
Exactly.
Crossbow, more like a crossbow, am I right?
Cross don't.
Ooh.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember selling weapons around here. Let me check my notes. Sure, I had someone.
There are several.
Yep. There was Rig the Fence. I've got a note about him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, my mate Rig. I need to go see Rig at some point.
Ah, Winston's. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
General shop.
Winston's General Shop, where you would be able to find, you think, sort of the kind of the basics. There will be, as noted, a little bit of a markup. But it is, Winston obviously knows a great deal about these sorts of things. And so, yeah.
I'm sure Silvo does or doesn't want to show his face to Winston at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Given the, what was it? Lend-lease or whatever the deal was with the scrying orb?
No, that's one of the things I want to do. I want to go pay for this week's thing. So I've been probably gone about a week, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I guess looks like Winston's for 3 of us at least.
Okay. Winston's for 3. Brian, what about you? Or do you have any shopping that you want to do while you're
I would like to replenish my healing potions. I wrote down that I used one of the 2, but I'm fairly certain I used the second one as well. I just didn't write it down.
Okay.
So I would like to get another couple of healing potions if possible.
Should be able to maybe do that, although let's take a look and see. That would be up at the temple. I would say that if you... So there are a couple of ways to go about this. It's a pretty safe bet, though, that if you want to get a potion of healing, you could probably get something like that with the gem that you carry. Because a potion of healing is roughly 50 gold, and you have to assume a little bit of a markup here because you're not in the middle of a city. So maybe like 60-ish gold, 55, 60 gold, something like that. So if you gave the gem, that might be a pretty close 1-to-1 approximation. You could try to haggle it maybe and get it so that you get that plus, I don't know, a fancy vial for the potion thrown in, or something along those lines. But the idea is that's about roughly what you think the cost would be, is around 50 to 60 gold, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay. So go ahead and mark the gem off your sheet. I don't think we need to RP through that. You can mark the gem off your sheet. and then get the potion of healing back. And let me just double check and make sure for what this has got. So it is.
I've got 2d4 plus 2.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, 2d4 plus 2. Yep. And I will note that this is set up in such a way that you could theoretically, if you want, take it as like 2 doses. So it would be, 1d4 plus 1, 1d4 plus 1. Or you could just chug the whole thing for the 2d4 plus 2. Okay. Meanwhile, Waves and Silvo and Morthwill are going to Winston's. And when you arrive, you can see that Winston is, at first you don't hear him, and the door to his store is open. And as you start walking in, you hear a voice, "Hold on, wait. Don't move."
I don't move.
Immediately freeze.
Okay. And he's like, "All right, okay, now, Morthwill, if you could just take a step to your right."
Okay, I take a step to my right.
A crossbow bolt flies past your shoulder. And he says, that's good. Exactly the direction I was hoping for. And you see Winston pop out with a smile. And he says, "I've just been working on something just in case anyone comes unexpected like." And you can see that there is now above the door, there is a hole that has been drilled into the wall above the door. And poking out of it is what looks like the end of a crossbow. And the bolt that just went whizzing past you angled downwards and missed. And if you had stepped forward basically 5 more feet, you would have stepped onto the mat leading into the door, and the bolt would have impaled directly into you. And he says, "All right, good. Can't be too careful these days with the security system. It's all fine now. You can walk in. I haven't reloaded it yet."
Aye, but you might not want to test that sort of thing during your opening hours, just a suggestion.
And he says, "Why? This way I could make sure that it actually worked." And he winks at you, and then goes back inside. So the rest of you can go in if you wish, and he is comes behind the counter, and he says, "Well, I hope you're all doing well. I've heard there's been quite a bit happening, and of course, what's been happening around Saltmarsh of late, and then there's rumors of invading forces maybe, and well, it's been quite something. And of course, I'm very excited that we've got some chances to deal with things like, for example, this scrying orb that you and I have talked about, Silvo. How's that working out for you?"
Yeah, it's all right. It's sort of worked once. I've not really looked at it too much because I've been too busy trying not to get eaten by a giant crocodile and getting hunted and quartered by lizard folk. But it's all good. It's all good. I owe you 10 gold, by the way.
He's like, "I know you do. And by the way, don't get eaten by a crocodile. You'll take my goods with you."
Well, I'll try not to, but at least then I'll be out of the finder's fee. So I'll pass him 10 gold.
Okay. And he nods at you and he says, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that you're paying your debts regularly. What can I do for all of you? I hope I can be of assistance. I've got anything you want, including crossbow traps."
Yeah, I think, someone who may be a bit interested in that, says Morthwill, looking at Waves.
I raise my hand.
"Oh, you want a crossbow trap? All right. I can prepare anything you need to protect you. If you've got something, I can even set this up on a ship. You make it so that anyone comes onto the gangplank to lead up that way. Well, the next thing they know, they'll be falling backwards with a crossbow bolt in their chest, if you want me to set it up that way. And I can cover both the price of the crossbow and installation. One low fee."
I stare at him for a moment, and then I shake my head. A little sadly.
"Well, it's all right. People who come on the gangplank without leave aren't good people. You don't have to worry about harming anyone you shouldn't."
I like show like the empty space around me, and then again shake my head and indicating I don't have enough ship for the crossbow trap.
And he says, "Oh, I see. You want a crossbow yourself. Oh, well, I should be able to provide one of those. And he turns around and he goes back behind the counter and I got this one, yeah, this one. And he puts a couple of ones up on the counter. Like one of them is basically looks like, Fisher Price, My First Crossbow, like this broken down small red thing, which just looks kind of messed up. And then a couple of others. And then he puts one on up there that looks, probably the best way to describe it, Waves, is it does look handmade, but it looks very sturdy. Like this sort of strong, dark wood. And he says, now this one, if something comes at you when you've got this on, all you have to do is crank this thing. And you realize that you're looking at what clearly is a heavy crossbow. And he says, this thing will stop an elephant if you need to stop an elephant.
I make a motion like picking up the crossbow and then breaking down under its weight.
Oh,
and then I shake the head, and then I stand a little bit away from the shop bar and make like a duelist motion.
And he sort of nods slowly and he says, I see, all right. And then he reaches down below and he takes out what looks very much like a version of the crossbow, which Morthwill gave you, although to be fair, a much better version of it than the one that you had. And he says, this one's fairly light. Won't have as much stopping power as that heavy one, but it'll do the job for you, and you won't have to worry about staggering under its weight when you do it.
I pick it up and look at it and make a positive motion, and then I make like...
He says...
to try to motion that I want it even smaller if possible.
So he nods slowly, and he turns to the Fisher Price My First Crossbow one. And he says, this one, he says, well, I didn't know if you could handle it, but, well, perhaps, I'm not sure if you're ready for this, honestly. Silvo, be a lad and hand me that, would you? And you see he's pointing at a bolt, like at the end of the counter.
All right, yeah. There you go.
So he takes it, and he loads it, and then quite suddenly, he jerks his hand up, fires it, it whistles past your left ear, Waves, and embeds itself in the door. And he says, well, if it's a hand crossbow you're looking for, this is what you want. It may look like nothing. It's what it does on the other end of being hit by it that matters. And he reverses it and hands it over to you, and he says, a hand crossbow. A good quality one that'll last you a while, I think. And it loads pretty quick.
I nod.
Okay. So, let's see. The cost for that that he's going to charge you is... Hang on a second. So, yeah. Because of the speed of this, and because of the way that it works, this would cost about 75 gold. But your gem is, you think you might be able to get him to get your gem for that, or that plus a little bit of supplemental money.
Yep.
Are you sure it's about 75 gold? Because firstly, it's got all those scuffs and nicks in it, and you've had it on display for about 6 months, so you can see where people have been finger marking it all over the place. And with that, I'm going to try and cast Distort Value to make it half price.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
So
Distort
he
value.
needs to make an Intelligence
Yep.
saving throw DC 14.
All right. Distort value. Now that's a spell I've not heard. And okay.
That's a spell I've made up. No, I'm joking.
No, you haven't made it up. Although I do need to remember what happens when a save gets made. Is he aware that you were trying to distort the value?
So anyone examining the object can ascertain its true value with a successful intelligence check against your spell DC save. That's it. There's no sort of like they become aggressive or anything like that.
Right.
There's...
So he looks at that.
It either doubles it or it halves it, depending on what I want to do with it.
Right. So he looks at it and he's like, and so you said it's definitely worth more than that. He looks up and he's like, It
worth less than that.
or worth less than that.
Yes.
It
He doesn't want me to pay more. He wants me to
I
pay
don't wanna-
less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'm going to
sorry.
increase the
Sorry,
value
sorry.
to try and bankrupt
It might be worth less at that if it was someone who didn't know what they were doing with it. But as you can see, this thing is fully functional. That means that it's not cheaper, no matter how you want to move things in a different direction there, Silvo. I know something about the weight and value of these items. In fact, this was an item crossbow I acquired myself, if you must know, and it was from a place of some worth at the time. The fact that it's gotten some use and it's now lovingly broken in doesn't mean it's any less effective.
Well, right, you can keep telling yourself.
Well, I take out my red gem and show it to Winston and motion towards the crossbow.
He looks at it and he kind of looks up at it with an eye. He goes to behind his desk. He pulls out one of those like jeweler appraiser, tubes basically, and kind of looks. And he's sort of like, well, I don't know. This isn't perfect, and I'm not sure how well it's been shaped, but
I make a motion like I'm completely shocked that he would insult my little ruby like that.
Yeah, and he says, but I know and like you, so all right, I'll do it. In fact, I'll even throw in 10 crossbow bolts, 10 quarrels with this, just to show you that all's meant well. And I'll also give you a 10-day money-back guarantee for any failure in parts, of course. Usage and labor, that's your problem. And he passes over the crossbow with the bolts. He takes the gem.
Okay, I take it on, and Waves looks really, really happy and makes like some motions with the hand with the hand crossbow.
It is quite light. It feels light, is what I mean.
And then she looks at Mothball and Silver and says,
I make this look good.
Yes, you do.
And with that, she steps aside, does a little bow, and waits for the other to finish their business.
While they've been doing their thing, Mothball, because he's not really looking for anything specific, but he's just having a rummage, see if anything's particularly interesting looking, whether it be not necessarily weapons and armor, maybe an interesting looking necklace or trinket.
So as you're sort of looking around, hold on a second, let me get my lights correct. As you're looking around, Morthwill, you do you have a few possibilities that you sort of that catch your eye, but one in particular that sort of seems to stand out to you is as you're looking at these things, you have been talking quite a bit about bags, let us say, and there is a gray bag that is sitting on the counter, just sort of by itself, and you like just it's just sitting there open, looking sort of for all the world like a small sack or something similar.
Okay. I'm going to pick it up. Not going to stick any body parts into it just yet.
Okay.
Just have a look at it. Does it feel like there's anything in it, or?
Yes, when you put your hand in... Oh, sorry. You don't put your hand in it. Sorry,
Yeah.
you just feel the
So
outside
like
of
that,
it?
yeah, like that. Like,
yeah, it feels like there are a couple of sort of rounded objects inside it. Although they might be soft, it's hard to tell, but they are definitely some kind of some balls of some kind.
Can't set me up like that.
Yeah, I just was waiting for you to say. So you take your sack of balls, and what do you do with
Giant's
them?
nutsack.
Well,
Congratulations.
Now I have to reach inside the sack and grab the balls, don't I?
Well, when that happens, okay. You.
The giant gets very angry when
Yeah,
that happens.
exactly. So in fact, you don't feel balls exactly, or at least not that kind. It is, however, a small, very, very fuzzy object. And it's kind of hard to tell what, though. It's not spherical. It's sort of this small, fuzzy object.
Okay, well, but I sort of look over to see if Winston's sort of annoyed at me examining this, but if he doesn't try and stop me, I'll pull them out to have a look.
And he says, well, go ahead and toss it over there. And he indicates the floor.
Okay, I'll throw it.
Okay, so this is a gray one. Can you please, let's see, roll a d8 for me, please.
Okie dokie. Just a flat d8. Okay,
Yep.
What do we got? A 6.
Okay. It lands probably, I would say, right near Waves, who's doing the whole thing with the hand crossbow. And suddenly, there is a very large, furry creature snuffling at your leg, Waves. It is a giant badger. And it kind of looks at you and bangs its head into your leg and then turns around and looks at you, Morthwill, and sort of shuffles over to you. You can see the white stripe down its down its face, and kind of goes over to you and then looks up and snuffles and then turns around and sort of seems to be waiting for you to do something.
Waves does a very surprised sound like.
Why becomes billowing bellows? It's a badger.
And Winston says, "That's right. It's a badger, all right. And it'll obey your wishes. At least it'll obey you for some time. It'll do that. At least it'll last for a day. You can get 3 of those from that bag per day. They call it a gray bag of tricks. It won't always be a giant badger, mind. It'll sometimes be other things. I've seen weasels pop out of there. Once I even saw a giant elk. So be careful about where you use this thing."
Waves looks very unsure at the badger, gets closer and says to the badger,
And the badger, which is, by the way, a giant badger, the giant badger kind of looks at you and then kind of narrows its eyes as if it's trying to figure out what you're asking.
I look at Morthwill and point at the badger, very confused about what the usefulness of a badger could possibly be.
Yeah, you haven't seen a badger fight, then I take it.
I shrug, which might be me admitting I have not seen a badger fight, no.
Let's just say they like to lock on and squeeze.
I stare blankly at you.
It's something you have to see rather than be told. I don't recommend trying it out on yourself.
I take a step away from the badger.
It's like, have you ever seen a bear trap?
I nod.
Now imagine this mouth is a bear trap.
I take another step away from the badger.
Now Waves has badgerphobia. Okay. I like the sound of this. Not entirely sure the mechanics of it. He says, looking inside, trying to see if there's any cunning mechanisms or...
You see absolutely nothing. You do see 2 fuzzy objects in there.
All right. I'll bite, or else the badger might. How much are you looking for this?
And he says, the problem is that one happens to be quite rare. That's going to cost you, and he does some mental calculations. 500 gold might be about right.
Ooh.
But listen, for a badger, and the badger sort of looks up at you and kind of, tilts its head. And it'll do whatever you tell it to do, at least if it can do it within its nature.
I'm sure it could. Unfortunately, one thing that's outside of its nature is being affordable to me at this current time.
He nods. He says, well, if you come back to me with some more valuable items, perhaps we can make an arrangement.
Well, now I can't go into specifics, but we may be visiting an area that is legally open to salvage for ourselves.
Ah, really? I like to hear about legal salvage operations. If you're successful with it, then perhaps we can make an arrangement. And if you're successful with it, perhaps I can hire you to go back there. You don't have to do everything through the town council. You cut out the middleman. Perhaps we just do a kind of direct employment deal, you understand?
I get what you're saying. You know me, I'm a bit more of an above-board kind of guy, but as long as the salvage situation where we're going checks out, it would be definitely legal and not wink-wink legal.
As long as it's definitely legal. And he takes the bag and he says to the badger, all right, come on. And the badger kind of takes one more look at you. And then, and this is very odd, Morthwill, leaps up and sort of puts its head in the bag. But then the next thing you know, it's inside the bag and the bag is closed. You don't really know how that just happened. It's like it's sort of morphed or something or downsized to enter the bag or shrank. And the bag is now closed, and he takes it and says, I haven't had anyone look at this yet, so if you want, I'll hold this for you for a couple of days anyway, and see how things happen with your totally legal salvage operation.
Hey, I like the sound of that. Can I put a deposit down on it in the meantime?
Of course, we have a very aggressive layaway plan. How much could you put down?
I pull out a red gem.
And he looks at it, he says, it's the same one. You all been robbing the same mine, I suppose. And he says, all right, I can put that towards it. If it's 500, 700, let's say that's 75 towards. 425 is left over.
What was the name of the item as well?
It was called a gray bag of tricks. There are other bags of tricks that exist in the world of different colors, but this is a gray one.
It's 3 random giant items per day. Just so
not giant necessarily.
Not
three
necessarily.
random creatures, and
Okay.
they're not. They're on a list that I have. They can be giant. They can be regular. So yeah, if you're looking for, we need something to do some stealth through there, and you get a giant elk. I mean, not my problem.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I think that gives me something to work towards at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this. All right, righty then. Well, I hopefully will be back for the next payment on this intriguing thing. It is.
All right, Silvo, I think you're, well, unless Brian has anything else to get, I know Brian already got the healing, but unless Brian or Silvo have anything else, I think we will just be about ready to wrap here. What do you think?
Brian, have you got anything else that you want to get?
Not really. I mean, I'd like at some point I'd like to have a mosey around the shop just to see if there's anything fun, but I can't really afford it at the moment. So I'm done for now.
That's fair enough. I'm just looking at the bag of tricks and the giant badgers, and I'm just gonna go, I didn't think this could get weirder. And I look over at Winston, I'm like, have you got any cheap knives?
He says, "Oh, I've got plenty of daggers," and he pulls out
sharp ones.
He pulls out this leather, basically this roll of leather, and then like down the counter, and it's just knife. And you see a lot of them. Some of them are gem encrusted. One of them has a skull on the pommel. You've seen one that seems to have a faint tinge of blue and green to it, and then a couple that seem like rough and ready. One thing that looks like it would be ambitious to call it a butter knife. Big variety.
I'm going to go middle of the road. I don't want something that's blunt, but I want something that's going to, cut rope easily if I try, or, give someone a sharp message if they get within hand-to-hand combat range.
He has a couple of those that would certainly serve, and it would be about 2 gold pieces for one of these.
Cool. I'll take one of those. I'll give him 2 gold. And finally, I'll look over at the bag, and I'll look over at some of the other stuff that he's got piled floor to ceiling. I'm like, got anything cheap and weird?
And he says, well, weird, yes. Cheap, no. Cheap, yes. Weird, no. Cheap and weird?
Cheap enough. Say, I don't know, 30 gold.
And he kind of blinks a little bit. And he says, well, and he pulls out
you want me to test for you?
He pulls out a potion of some kind, a vial of some liquid. And he puts it over and he says, all right. I've heard tell that this is well, they said it was an antidote when I talked to the alchemist who made it. But to be honest with you, it's, I don't know exactly what it's antidote against. He said it would be against anything, against disease, against wasting, against blindness, deafness, you name it. against curses even. But something seems odd about it to me, and, well, I don't want to have to test it out here. It should be tested in the field. So, if you want, I'll give this to you for 25 gold, but you got to take strict notes on what it actually does, mind.
How many doses it got?
2, or at least from
2.
what I can tell from the vial.
Can I sniff it first?
Yes, it smells odorless.
What color is it?
It is a weird, like, rainbowish, viscous color.
Oh, it's petrol.
Yeah.
Can I get over and look at it?
If you wish.
Because maybe it's liquid battery. You never know what he's buying. And
that's right.
Can I make a medicine check to see if I've maybe have an idea of what this is?
Why not?
8. I know what this is.
This is
It's
definitely a
liquid
liquid in a vial. Yes, exactly. It's a multicolored liquid. You've seen multicolored
This is
liquids
a
before.
potion
Yes.
of what you don't know.
Right.
I look at the potion. I look at Silvo, and I shrug.
I whisper to Waves, what's the worst that could happen? I mean...
I make a small croaking noise and faint falling over, keeling over dead.
Yeah, that doesn't normally impact me too badly.
I look at Silvo after he finally said something like that, and I
Dig
say,
out the sound you've been saving.
Something's wrong with you. Really.
Yep.
and I pat him on the shoulder.
Thanks.
So you do it.
I'll take the potion. 25 gold.
25.
Okay.
And having
Even
done
with that little chip in the top of the glass.
and he kind of like looks at it and says, "What chip in the top of the glass? You listen. If it's as good as this person says it is, then I'm robbing myself."
All right. Keep your hair on.
And he says, "All right, now be off with you. Let me know if what else you find of information that you got, and keep up the good work on that scrying orb, and don't lose it, by the way, and break it and throw it down a crocodile's gullet."
Well, I'll try not to.
As the 4 of you are about to leave, he says, "And also, take it easy out there. Saltmarsh has gotten tense, and I wouldn't want to see any of you get stuck in the middle. First of all, I need customers and I need testers, so it's bad for business for people to get hurt. So just take it easy, the 4 of you."
And yourself, Winston. Where else are we going to get weird odds and ends from?
Yeah, stay safe, Winston, mate.
I'll make sure to do that, and I'll keep safe your bag of badgers, too.
That promises to be a lot of fun.
He nods. I agree. And as the 4 of you depart, heading out into the afternoon sun, you can hear the ocean waves breaking against the coast, and far off somewhere there in the deep blue of the azure sea, a perhaps ghost ship to which you must surely travel soon. And that is where we are going to end our session for today. A session which was perfectly named Diplomacy in Doubt. Good job, me. Way to go. Way to name it properly. It was perfectly named, and it was great to get into it. And I had one person who came in during it and was kind of like, "When are you folks playing?" And I'm like, "We are playing, my dude. We are playing both with this and with combat that we get into. And the next thing that's going to happen, presumably, is the party is maybe going to head out to do this salvage operation and figure out what's the deal with this Emperor of the Waves, and can they get the council on side, et cetera, et cetera. But it was good stuff from everybody today, and I will start with the person at the bottom right, and that, of course, is Ananda with Brian. Brian definitely had some good moments here, not only with the council, but I think there was a reason probably that Anders went to speak to Brian directly and was like, "Hey, what do you think about this? Talk to the crew, et cetera, because Brian, in a way, has that kind of captain's aura about her that would allow her to be able to maybe communicate these things to them. And I wasn't sure how Brian was going to take it. This is obviously one of those like, okay, report directly to me, tell no one deals, right? And there's the whole business of the council, but the whole council political situation is pretty messed up at the moment anyway. So maybe go with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't, especially because there is this looming threat of what might be out there with the Sahugin. So I was interested to see how you would react to that. And I'm curious how you felt today, Ananda, about the session and where the fine folks will find you next.
I love today's. I always love our D&D sessions. I love today's session. My thoughts when Anders first presented it to Brian was like, obviously play it cool, but she knows the legend and the pirates who attacked the ship, and obviously being a pirate herself, she wants a bit of that. She wants to find out what happened, and the prospect of finding a magical weapon as well is very, very appealing. Plus she does have a quite a sense of her crew were very important to her, and when she buys into something, she kind of she puts her blinkers on and goes for it. And because we've committed ourselves, as in our party, the four of us, to at least attempting to get Saltmarsh to join the lizard people and others in fighting the Sahugin, she'll do everything she can to try and facilitate that. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to going and seeing if we can find this ship and like rubbing our hands together at what loot can be on board. But yeah, as always, I love our D&D session. So thank you so much. This week I'm back from a couple of weeks away from streaming. I've been trying to sort myself out. I've got a new puppy, which is why I've been slightly distracted for the last 20 minutes where she did not want to be in her pen any longer. But yeah, so as of tomorrow, I'm back on my own channel with some new branding, which I'm really, really excited to show everyone. So yeah, that'll be tomorrow, playing some Skyrim, and then back on Friday on my own channel playing some Skyrim, and then Saturday over here on GOG.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ananda, as always. And yes, thank you to River for being a good dog and letting us play with you for a few hours tonight.
She was a very good.
She was. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you, Ananda. Moving right on up. Mike, Silvo also had some big moments. I love the idea of you using this scrying orb and like walking around the table being all, Mr. Impressive about how things happened. And I also happen to like the idea of basically being like when I defeated the crocodile mostly by myself, and everyone's like, what? And then you're like, okay, well, I helped. All right, well, I was present at the when it happened. I was there. So I also thought that was funny. The relationship between Hannah and Silvo continues to be a good one. But also, it's interesting because, obviously, for example, Morthwill was pretty ticked off at the council for good reason. Waves was obviously irritated by that one line that, she kept repeating over and over again. And while Brian certainly is fairly even-keeled about this stuff, Brian was none too happy about it either. So there was a part, I'm sure, of Silvo that was like, the hell with these people. Like, I was wondering if anyone was going to think about the... in the council in Mass Effect, where you're just kind of like, screw you people, like, that type of thing.
Reapers? The
so
Reapers
there was,
don't exist.
yeah, there are no Reapers. Oh yeah, what a shock.
Exactly.
So there was a bit of that. But Silvo at the same time also has to maintain presumably some relationship with the council of the town, especially since it's not 100% clear. Some of the council, like Anders, may be more supportive, obviously, than others, like maybe Eleander, although maybe Eleander isn't that bad. Martran's with the whole, mine and the Dwarven Mines thing, maybe not so much. But there are a lot of conflicting loyalties that have to be played out, and that's something which Silvo has experienced before in figuring out who you can trust and who can't. So I thought it was interesting to see that play out. So how did you feel about today's session? Where will the fine folks find you next?
I absolutely adored it. Like normal, it's an absolutely fantastic session when we get together. And I'm genuinely just chomping at the bit. I was thinking to myself earlier, I'm like, Oh, I don't. I've got a really early start tomorrow, and I need to finish like bang on a certain time. And then when it started to get to that certain time that we would normally finish at, I was like, I just kind of want to carry on. Like I just want to carry on. I'm just having a lot of fun. Like I'll be all right. I'll just have an extra coffee in the morning. I'll be fine. And that's what I'll be doing. But yeah, I absolutely adored it. And yeah, watching Silver's character grow and mature and going from the scared little kid that was in the council chamber first off a couple of weeks ago in game, or however many days ago it was, to this suddenly a bit more confidence, a bit more showmanship, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's an interesting one to start playing out. But you can find myself, if you're interested in my face and my voice, you can find me over on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/peripheral mic. We're playing games this Friday because I've got the day off work. So I'm playing games during the day on Friday. And I have no idea what I'm going to play. I might play some more Phasmophobia. I might play something else. Who knows? But yeah, check it out.
Good stuff. Thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure. And also a pleasure, of course, to have Darksaber with us with notable stuff from Morthwheel. I was thinking about this when we set up for the council meeting, that of all the characters, Morthwheel was probably going to be the most like, oh my God, like we already know Morthwheel's dislike for politics in general. Then you combine that with something which seems like obvious, which is we need to help the town. And instead it's like, no, let's mix in a lot of, latent racism with, that sort of thing. And it's, again, a combination because they're not all that way, right? There's conflicting interests. Some of them may actually think that it's a good idea to do this, but they're worried if it's right. Some of them, like Anders, presumably support you, so it's a little bit of a mixture, but the point is it's a pain in the ass and people should just trust you and whatever. So there was all that going on. And so we had that. I also was a big fan of the bag of badgers, so to speak, which that was fun. But I was mostly, and I am going to be curious too to see how Morthwheel handles things with this dwarven ship, which he had a hand in constructing, and to talk a little bit about that and sort of understanding the construction of ships, because you're going to find one that should have been sunk and somehow isn't. So I'm curious to see how Morthwheel handles that. How did you feel about today's session? Where will the fine folks find you next?
This was great fun. I was echoing pretty much what Mike said at the end there about like, I just want to keep going a bit longer.
Yeah.
Really getting into the groove, and yeah, it's kind of a bit fun when Morthwell's in the council room and he's just sort of like, I know more than all of you.
None of you know anything. I was there when the courage of man failed.
In this room. Why won't you listen to me? I'm smarter than you.
Yep.
But
you should have pulled that card. I have an intelligence of 18, you jackass.
Look, can you make one of these? I don't even know what it is, but I made it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, the ship is definitely relevant to Morthwheel's interests, and the fact that it is in technically a legal area means that he can also salvage stuff for research, and he can be totally okay with that.
Right.
So looking forward to see where that goes. Always fun to check in with Winston. I like him. He's a nice guy to check back in with, and sometimes he has a bag of badgers and assorted random animals that you might be able to buy from him.
Just in case.
I've got to make. I put money down on it now.
Yeah, I know now. I mean, clearly, it's
I'm committed now. I have to. You understand? I don't want to. I'm forced to at this point.
You were required to put money on the bag of
Legally
badgers.
obligated.
Yes,
Legally
absolutely.
obligated. Yes. A badger as well. Like, badgers. I don't know what it is about badgers. They are just such a inherently funny animal to just throw into situations.
That's right. And they are brutal fighters. You like badgers do not mess around. I think it was Friendly Kitten who's doing the whole badger, which of course I was thinking about too.
So yeah, but yeah, I have had a great amount of fun. And so sometimes it's funny as well because you get invested in like other people's parts, and then it comes like, and what about you, Morth? I was like, oh right, I'm in this as well. I need to do something. So it's good times all around. But I'll be back tomorrow, not as Morthill, just as Darksaber 2K. But I'll be back here on this channel, going to be playing the Settlers 2 10th Anniversary Edition, because I played a lot of Settlers 2. I haven't played a lot of Settlers 2 10th Anniversary Edition. People have actually asked me if I might check that out sometime, so I'm gonna. And I'll be back on my channel probably Thursday and Friday, and definitely Saturday.
Good stuff. Thank you, Saber. Always a pleasure. And again, thanks for Dashboard and Moobot as always. And last but certainly not least, Pyron, Waves definitely had a lot of good moments too. The freaking thing with the crocodile sound was every time was cracking me up. And a couple of times, like Hillness came in here at one point and was like, what the hell was that? Because this is like, that thing? And it was just, someone was like, maybe it's this. And I'm like, maybe it could be. It was very funny. It certainly adds to the credibility of what it was you encountered. I liked that. I liked the moment of the 3 olives in quotes and the martini, the vodka martini thing. And then also, Waves righteously insulted, and quite legitimately so, for just being like, oh, you're making fun of me? Is that what you're doing? And then just continually repeating that phrase, I thought was very interesting. And Waves is going to have stuff to think about. I mean, yes, Waves is about the treasure, but also I don't know how Waves feels about this political nonsense that's being dealt with. But, there is a sense of valor, which maybe Eleander, maybe that resonated with Eleander. You don't know yet. But regardless, you had to deal with this sort of like infighting, bickering stuff, which I'll bet Waves was not a big fan of. And now you have something to actually go look for, treasure and so on. Treasure and ships, your 2 favorite things. How did you feel about today's session? Where will the fine folks find you next?
As always, I loved our session. And yeah, Waves keeps to be continuously disappointed by the humans that are in charge. And I think it's also one of the reasons why she wants her own ship where no humans will be in charge. At least not the humans that are usually in charge. Maybe humans that were not in charge yet could try it and see if they can do better. But still, it's nope.
Seems
and
reasonable.
so that is kind of, she wants her freedom that way. And treasure, ships, this is always, and I have so many questions about the back of badgers. Like, when they disappear, do they like fall apart into a puddle of badger? And what is if we would try to eat them? Do they disappear when they get like down to 0, or could we still eat them?
That's a good question.
Or what? I have so many questions about
source of food.
Please stop preemptively trying to eat my new bag of badgers.
Which he doesn't even own yet.
Every time I get a bag of something, there's something bad planned for it.
Didn't you tell us that you can make like an unlimited? Didn't you once tell us that you can make like an unlimited supply of mayonnaise? I see possible synergies here. Like,
wow.
Badger stew on a daily basis.
In mayonnaise.
You're making me sad.
Badger stew with mayonnaise. That's
if you stop buying magical bags, this wouldn't happen.
Right.
Yes.
Stop buying and making magical bags, and this won't happen.
So, when will the nice folks see me next? Well, most likely during our own session, although I want to start playing Terranil that just came out today. Just in case somebody has not seen it, I'm going to put a thing in chat because this looks like such a lovely game, and I'm just promoting the heck out of it because it just looks so lovely, although I've not even started playing it. But I looked at the trailer and went like, oh. So please have a look at the trailer. If I can fit it in, I might even stream it. But apart from that, I have to mention something on stream that's like completely different thing, but I'm just like kind of proud of myself. Everybody who has seen me play games that has like a reaction time or action on stream knows that I'm like incapable running in a straight line or hitting something, but I've just achieved 50% of achievements in Dead Cells, and I'm like, yeah! So, just wanted to mention that. That's it for me.
Good stuff today, Pyron, and good stuff with all of this wonderful crew. I'm really glad that we got back on board ship, as it were, off to another adventure. And indeed, our next session will be called, chat, in case you're curious, D&D with GOG, Ghosts of Saltmarsh Salvage Operation. And we will see how they do with this salvage operation. But I want to thank everyone for being amazing today in chat. Can we get some love for our amazing players? Pyron Jade, Darksaber2K, Peripheral Mike, and Ananda. You will see them again next month for more Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Players, thank you so much. And bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
And that, folks, is going to do it for us for today. I really had a good time today. I always have a good time with this crew, but I really enjoyed being able to get back into this because I like the Saltmarsh idea. I like the concept of this sort of coastal place where these things are happening. You all know that I love sort of political intrigue type of stuff, and I was a big fan of just being able to sort of be a part of that mix. And as you know, I love listening to player planning sessions. So when they're all like, well, maybe we could do this, or maybe we could try this, or maybe we could make this other thing happen, I was just like, sign me up. Like, let me, right into my veins, So I was I was enjoying that quite a bit. And I think that it's going to be great. And of course, we've had some very good Talisman Adventures sessions over here recently as of late too. So we're going to have more of that next month, and it's going to be awesome. I am going to be done now until Friday on my channel. I'll be back Friday night with some more of Sorcery 4, Inkle's Crown of Kings, where chat gets to make the decisions. And then April will be upon us, and we will have our scheduling set. Yes, I have my You Can Certainly Try You Can Certainly Try shirt on, which was given to me by Mike, actually, so it's very appropriate. So yeah, this weekend, Triffid and I have almost got the schedule set for the month, so we will have that figured out, and it's going to be great, and I am excited. Yeah, you missed a bag of badgers, Dragon, exactly. So just keep that in mind. That's what you actually missed. But this is a lot of fun, and I am excited for what happens next. I believe that's going to wrap us up. I don't actually know if Fleos is on. Yeah, that's how you spell next. Absolutely. It is going to be Fleos. Okay, so Fleos is going to be back with some D&D Dragon Strike. That is going to be a good thing for me to do a little bit of writing to. So I will be enjoying that, checking back here in about an hour and 20 minutes. Of course, Fleos has also been part of this D&D with GOG mix, and were it not for that pesky thing called the job, Fleos would be hanging out with us doing these sessions more, but we, whenever we can, try to organize it so that he can join us with Oceanus and be a part of this mix. So you should definitely check out Fleos when he's here in a couple of hours. I will be back next Tuesday. Again, do not know yet quite whether or not it's going to be Ghosts of Saltmarsh or Talisman Adventures, or whether it's going to be Chained Echoes. I will know that within the next few days. We will get that sorted out in terms of the schedule. But I want to thank you for being with me during the month of March on Pen and Pixels, and thank you for supporting us here on GOG.com as always. Please follow the channel. Please check out our, make sure that you as well subscribe to us here. That is always appreciated because we get those custom sub badges and stuff like that. Thank you for everyone who subbed and followed today. And please also consider checking out our individual channels, because we have our own subsystems and Patreons and stuff like that. And yes, Kilgore, I totally get that feel. Nothing to feel guilty about, but I totally understand that feel. So yeah, still nonetheless, much appreciated. And again, I was a big fan of that interview that you did with the Williams. I guess it was last week or the week before, which I had a chance to catch some of. It was good stuff. Chat, that is going to do it for me, and I will see all of you lovely folks either on my channel on Friday night at 9 p.m., well, between 8 and 9 p.m. for Sorcery, or I will see you back here next Tuesday for episode 370 of Pen and Pixels, as we forge onwards towards episode 400, my God. But 370 coming up later, coming up next Tuesday, which will be either Chained Echoes or Talisman Adventures or Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I do indeed have a Twitch TV channel. That's it for me. Thanks to everyone. Much love. And thank you especially to my players, Pyron J, Darksaber2K, Peripheral Mike, and Ananda. And we will see you folks soon. Thanks, chat. Good stuff tonight. And I will see you folks soon. Bye for now.